You know, everybody.
Okay,
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to open up the Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for tonight, Thursday, April 18th, 2024. We are meeting in the Jehu Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. This meeting is being made available through the Zoom link. And you would have to call the telephone number that's been sent out for the audio connection. Before we do begin, if you would like to join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag, that'd be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're good to go. Before we begin, if there's any public comment for issues that are not related to agenda items that are posted for tonight's meeting, this would be the time for those. Anybody from the public that would like to speak? Seeing nobody here in the room, nobody online, Dan? Issues not related to agenda items, no? Okay. Before we begin tonight's hearings, I'm going to stop down on the discussion agenda item for the Santuit Town Landing Construction and Community Outreach Project. We have a request from the Department of Natural Resources for a letter of support from the Conservation Commission for their DNR FY25 MVP Action Grant application. I distributed some information about what's around the table. This is for the Santuit Landing stormwater improvements and the community outreach activities that are part of that grant application. It's due on April 26th, so this will be our last opportunity to chime in on it. So, what is the pleasure of the commission? That would be a motion.
Make a motion to accept the proposal
second,
as submitted
oops, sorry,
and back the project.
Okay, go with the letter of support.
Yeah.
And that's a second.
that's a second.
We do have a letter of support template from Ashley Fisher. We could probably just use that.
Yes, I have it pretty much already drafted almost.
Okay,
Just add the town logo.
okay, perfect. Anything else before I take a vote?
No, I just think that we should apologize. Oh, we have to take a vote.
Yes.
Sorry.
Voting. Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yeah.
Sandy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes,
Thank you. And I vote yes as well. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, did you have something?
I was going to apologize to everyone that's sitting out in the hall. I don't know if they can hear, but it's a night when we have a big crowd in a very small room. But it's all for a good reason.
Yeah, they're busy working upstairs.
It's gonna be much better for the public.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, let's catch up here. Now calling the 6:30 hearing for 53 Bluff Avenue. This is Lorraine G. McBride, proposed additions to a single-family dwelling. Representative is Marsh Matters Environmental. Continued for 12/7/23, 125, and 3/7/24. Notice of intent, DEP number 433260. We have a request from the applicant to withdraw the notice of intent without prejudice. So,
So they evaluated the entire property because of last hearings with what was noticed. It was, some buildings had a problem with it as well. And the homeowner decided this time she doesn't want to go through with anything just because of shelter change, the whole raise and replace.
the cost and
The cost and everything,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. So they decided not to do it this time.
I know Steve, you mentioned something about that, the cost being higher than the value of the property.
Yeah, and then the plans were, looked like it was a tear down rebuild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And it was over that. It was over that.
Yeah.
Okay, then, any questions on that? I would take a motion.
Make a motion for 53 Bluff Ave to withdraw without prejudice.
Thank you, Steve.
Withdraw the application without prejudice.
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion by commissioners? Hearing none, I will take a vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Aaron?
yes,
And I vote yes as well. So that motion carries unanimously. Now calling the 6:33 hearing, 119 Daniel Island Road and 15 Waterway Roland Bates, New Seabury Homes LLC. This is a proposed pier ramp and float with access path. Representative is BSC Group, owner of record New Seabury Properties LLC. This is continued from 12/7/23 to 15 and 3/21/24. It's a notice of intent, 433261. And we have a request to continue this hearing until May 9th at 6:33.
Yeah, so, reviewing their application, they they are proposing a full house with a pool and the patio. They had part of that patio in the 75-foot buffer of the salt marsh. So it was asked if that could come out, and then they just said we're gonna request a continuance to reevaluate. So they're adjusting the housing plans, and they're continuing, they have two applications up, one for the house, one for the dock. They want to continue both of those. The other one will be later in the night,
Later in the night.
just so they can run them both simultaneously the same night.
Okay. Okay, and those will both go to roll over to May 9th.
Correct, yeah, so 6:33 for 119 and 15 Waterway will be for this one.
I'll just grab that one as we move to the rest of the agenda, okay? Any questions from commissioners? No?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second. Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion before we call for a vote? Hearing none. Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, sir.
Sandy? Steve?
Yeah.
Aaron?
yes,
Thank you, and I vote yes as well, so that motion carries unanimously. Well, this second. Okay. Now calling the 6:36 hearing for 425 Monument Story Road, Mark H. and Lisa White. This is a proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling, deck, boathouse, driveway, 5 septic system, landscaping. Sorry, place here. Landscaping, utilities, and associated appurtenances. Representatives Cape Island Engineering. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433269. Continued from 2/15/24 and 3/51/24. Before I begin. Yeah, could you clarify for me, on 2/15/24 and both 3/21/24, information was not given, it was just a continuance request on both of those dates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people that are here tonight are eligible to
Yeah,
participate
it was-
in vote. There's no Mullen rule that would.
There was no Mullins since they were officially open and continued. There was nothing discussed, there was no deliberation.
Okay, so they didn't miss any pertinent information, so we're good to go with everybody that's here.
That's what I have, to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Dibb, civil engineer with Cape and Islands Engineering. I do agree, nothing was presented yet. For the applicant, Mark and Lisa White, for 425 Monument Square. So I'll just go through existing conditions, proposed conditions, some initial discussions we had with Drew and a response we submitted, and just then our final, what we believe are improvements for the project, and then give it back to the commission for questions. So the existing property is at 425 Montescoy. To the east is Little River. We have we have land underwater and landscaping shellfish. We have a salt marsh, and then we have the associated buffer zones to the salt marsh. As well, to the east is Montescoy Road, and north and south is existing residential properties. The property is gently sloping. There is no coastal bank, so again, the resource areas are shown, and 75-foot buffer in green and 150-foot buffer in green is shown. The proposal consists of this is existing condition, consists of raising the existing house and boathouse and redeveloping it with a new dwelling. It's relatively in the same shape we do. The applicant is requesting to kind of flip-flop the boathouse and the house. Other components of the project will be a slight reconfiguration of a gravel driveway to support entrance into the garage or slash boathouse. There will be a new IA septic system included in the design. There will be reconfigured entrances and patio and decks on the house. And a key component of the project is, number one, not to be any closer to the resource areas. And number two is to move it back from those areas, as well as provide site improvements. So some other improvements are also drainage via dry wells. And then also the resulting mitigation, which is being proposed as an increase to the natural buffer along the entire waterfront area. We're proposing to replace the trees that are primarily cut. There's a clump of trees in this area throughout the project, as well. Just make the site work for the applicant. And again, another thing is to bring the house up to flood compliancy. It'll be built on a foundation with flood vents. Finished floor will be as required above the floodplain. And I don't know if I know, the entire property is in the floodplain for this house. When we submitted, it was a similar plan. The house was more forward on the site, forward meaning the water's edge. We did receive 4 comments, initial feedback from Drew. I'll just go down through those real quick. And number 1 was regarding Regulation 25, Section 7, that he felt the commission would seek a waiver request from setbacks related to land subject to coastal storm flowage. I wanted to just make 2. We have multiple projects tonight, so I'm going to make this speech once, just because it's it's relative to basically our projects in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So, and I know as an engineer, I've noted before in the past that we feel that this regulation is not applicable to these projects. I just wanted to go through in an engineering sense, why I feel that way, why Cape and Islands feels that way. And then lastly, what we also feel is the intention of the original drafting of the bylaw. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of things related to, to Regulation 25. And I'm trying to just give our engineering reasoning for this a little more detail than I think I have in the past. Regulation 25, Section 7 calls out setbacks / critical erosion areas, and then starts immediately off as significance, and then in bold it says building close to the shoreline. It's a common but possibly poor siting practice. And that building close to the shoreline is one of our main points that I'd like to convey tonight, that the intent of Regulation 25 is to provide a setback from sites that are building close to the shoreline, which is labeled in bold. And throughout your regulation, there's superscripts relating to references from some Rhode Island, particularly Rhode Island documentations. And I just wanted to go through a couple of your own definitions, as well as the definitions in those documents. One being in that document, building close to the shoreline, it's is a common and often poor siting practice. It says if flood hazards increase over time, the building may require removal, protection, or demolition. In coastal areas subject to long-term episodic erosion, poor siting often leads to otherwise well-built elevated buildings standing on active beaches. And when you look at the definition of, shorelines and within the Rhode Island, references that this is cited from, you know, it talks about the coastal features, which is also a definition in your bylaw that shows in definition of coastal feature means any coastal beach, barrier island, or spit, coastal wetland, coastal headland, bluff or cliff, rocky shore. So, you know, I think obviously coastal beach, barrier island, or spit, you know, those are pretty specific land items, land forms. And there is, it mentions coastal wetland. And if you look up coastal wetland, again, within the cited references, the coastal wetland is defined as means salt marshes and freshwater brackish wetlands contiguous to salt marshes or physiographical features. Areas of open water within coastal wetlands are considered part of the wetland. And additional coastal wetlands also include freshwater or brackish wetlands that are directly associated with non-tidal ponds. So, you know, I think just from our engineering stance, you know, we feel that based on the definitions right in the bylaw itself and the references, that the setback, the intention of this regulation is to be setbacks in those critical erosion areas. The next part of your definition is, or the next part of your regulation is the word critical erosion areas. And it's under your definition section, it's written exactly, critical erosion areas are areas as shown on the maps prepared by Massachusetts CZM Shoreline Change Project, where the average rates are greater than 2 feet per year. And those maps, it's hard to see, but those are the main shoreline of Cape Cod. The individual little inlets and things are not on those maps. So that's another citing, you know, right within the regulation that we feel is important to use those definitions. And then section C of the regulation talks about setback requirements, and it says, right, this is that setbacks shall be maintained in areas contiguous to coastal beaches, coastal wetlands, coastal cliffs, banks, rocky shores, and existing man-made shorelines, and apply to the following categories. The categories are fill, residential buildings, sewage disposal systems. So the categories are actually what you're building. It's not in reference to the resource areas. So again, you know, we feel it's those landforms associated with the coast that are subject to erosion. We just feel that when you follow the definitions through the cited references, you know, we feel these setbacks are in relation to critical erosion areas, which are the outer coast per the map. Even table 2 right in the bylaw says setback in critical erosion areas. So, you know, I just wanted to, I don't think I've ever done this before on each of our projects, is to just give a little background of where we're coming from on that regulation. One other thing, we also, our client has, I think you received some of the paperwork, hired Rubin and Rudman to just support them through this process. And one thing that the attorney pointed out is that intent of bylaws and in the intent of the creators of bylaws does hold weight in court and just through procedures such as this. And the attorney did get an affidavit from the previous conservation agent, and I think should be included in your packet, that with a signed statement of what he feels as the creator of the bylaw, of what the intention is. And he feels that the intention is to be setbacks in requirements from areas subject to critical erosion areas, which is the outer coast of Cape Cod per the maps. He feels the intention was not to apply it to any subject coastal storm flowage. So ultimately, we have not requested the waiver for that setback. And we feel that it's not applicable, even this project, that is along a water body. And we provided it right on the plan. It's approximately from the CZM map as stated in the regulation, we feel it's over 3,000 feet from any critical erosion area. So we are not requesting the waiver from that regulation. That was Drew's first comment. The second. The proposal had some areas of existing building, this corner right here per se, this, what was gonna happen to existing building that's being pushed back and moved away, is it become manicured lawn? Is it gonna be replanted with native species? Based on the final layout of the project, we are proposing that it does get returned to lawn similar to what's there per the fertilization and nitrogen requirements Mashpee has. And the reason for that is we feel that the project is still a net reduction of lawn area in this throughout here of over 300 square feet. When you include the mitigation that is proposed. It's just in order to not chop up the proposal with some planting beds. If that's still an issue, that would be open for discussion. We feel based on the overall net loss of lawn, even with that being established as lawn, we feel that is acceptable. Drew also asked about the impact to the floodplain for this project. Based on the final design, after we reconfigured the house back, there a few things between the natural mitigation buffer that's being created, the house going from non-compliance to flood zone to compliant. Part of a flood zone, it is a resource area, but it's delineated in order to protect structures, to protect habitat, to protect the people in that flood zone. So by upgrading the house to flood standards, we feel that's a significant improvement versus a house that's there. There's habitable space under the base flood elevation. And as well, the lower level, it will not be can be used for storage. We'll have flood vents. We'll be able to have flood storage capacity. And the project is a net increase of almost 18,000 cubic feet of flood storage for the property. So between the different improvements, we feel the floodplain is actually better off as part of this proposal. The last question was, we originally had one-to-one mitigation. We have since updated the project, provided 2-to-1 mitigation for this table. And we also, based on his suggestions, we did some just general site plan modifications by moving things back. The actual footprint of the house, of the foundation, is smaller than the existing house. There are some deck areas, so per lot coverage per se, the deck in the house is increasing by 300 square feet, but the habitable space of the structure is actually reduced. A summary of impacts or improvements, we're providing roof runoff, IA system. We feel we're actually increasing flood storage capacity, the property's ability to manage flooding, as well as the mitigation provides a buffer. We've even provided, per your nitrogen bylaw, there's a suggestion of a small berm So along, fit into this, to this mitigation, will be a small berm that will help slow any kind of migration of runoff or anything left over. So, you know, I think one goal we always try to do is make an environmental improvement for the project. We feel it meets our clients' needs as well as the performance standards for both the Wetlands Protection Act and the town of Mashpee. And believe that the project is worthy of the order conditions. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. I will begin tonight's question, comments, discussion, and like you, Mark, I think one should be enough because we have several projects that are not on the same door. As I think everybody in the room knows, we've been down a very long road with Regulation 25 C7C, which because of recent buffer zone enhancements, that regulation is now Regulation 25 C9. And numbering conventions changed a little bit, but we're talking about the same regulation. Indeed, I did read Robert Sherman's affidavit. I've never met Robert Sherman. I believe he's an honorable, respectable, engaged environmentalist. And if you go back to 2005 and even prior to that, in reading his affidavit, it appeared to me that there was an urgent need to get some regulations on the books to cover land subject to coastal flow. The DEP, as far back as 1993, 95, were still basically dragging their heels. Today, there is still no regulation for land subject to coastal flow. We're close. There's a lot of draft language, and I think we're in the 11th hour. And we, as a commission, have been working on Regulation 25 to change some of the language, to clarify what's indeed kind of a copy paste. In fact, it was the owner of the drug company that sat here one night and said, that's nothing more than a copy paste from Rhode Island. I'm sure you might remember that because you were sitting right beside him. I took the time to look at the State of Rhode Island Coastal Management Program, Section 140. And when you look at Section 140, it's a one-pager, that's it. And it's almost verbatim as to what we see in Regulation 25. I'll use the old numerical things, C7C. The only difference is that the specific references to sections for Rhode Island were taken out, obviously, because they make no sense in Massachusetts. So I think what Bob Sherman did was he saw this as a viable tool to bring into place to help the town of Mashpee deal with building that's going on in land subject to coastal flow. Incidentally, the title is Section 140 setbacks. Doesn't say critical erosion areas. And in fact, in this copy here, which is a little bit of an update, this one was effective May 22nd, 2007. There's not even a mention of critical erosion in it. But regardless of all of that, this is Massachusetts, it's not Rhode Island. And what we have is an awful lot of language in Regulation 25, courtesy of the state of Rhode Island through Bob Sherman's intent, so to speak. Let me read for you paragraph 6 from Massachusetts General Law. This is not a regulation. This is the law. Chapter 131, section 40, paragraph 6. The term coastal wetlands is used in this section shall mean any bank, marsh, swamp, meadow, flat, or other lowland subject to tidal action or coastal storm flowage. So the state of Massachusetts defines land subject to coastal flow as coastal wetlands. Now, we hear all kinds of rhetoric about what is the difference between a wetland and a resource area. I get that, and I think most commissioners get it. A wetland, there are two very distinct ways to determine that: hydric soils or obligate plant species. If plant species aren't there, then you get out your plugs and you start digging. We all understand that land subject to coastal flow does not meet those two definitions, but it is defined by law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as coastal wetlands, not coastal resource area, coastal wetlands. And then when you look at the language that Mr. Sherman took from Rhode Island, it specifically says coastal wetlands. And it says the setback has to be a minimum of 50 feet, which incidentally now by our regulations is 75. That's a minimum. And so when I came along and read this on a plain reading, I took it to Drew. He didn't agree with me. We went to town council. We all sat there, town manager, town council, Drew. Evan Lair was there as the community development director and myself. And Mr. Costello said, on plain reading, Paul, you're absolutely correct. That's what it says. And that's all we have on the table. That's why we are vigorously working to change regulation 25. So it does make more sense. But until it is changed, either through our work or the states, which are coming closer and closer, we have to go with what we have. So I, for one, find it very difficult, in fact, impossible, to read regulation 25 and to read Massachusetts general law and say that that doesn't apply. And that's not an interpretation. That's plain reading. I don't interpret laws. I follow them. I try to. Sometimes I go a little over the speed limit, but you know, that happens with all of us. So I'm not interpreting anything. I'm taking what I'm reading and I'm applying it to what's being presented. And that's all I have to say. And again, I won't do it for each project that comes along. But I know Drew had sent me an email today. He says, Paul, you really need to take the opportunity tonight to explain to commissioners, well, where are you coming from?
Right.
That's where I'm coming from. And this was all brought to light with the 228 Waiting Place Road issue. In fact, ironically, it was Attorney Brian Wall that represented the Andrews Trust. And it was the land court judge that specifically said, listen, there it is. It's a coastal wetland. You have to treat that as a wetland. And so that's where we are.
Is the practical outcome then, that they have to apply for a waiver?
Well, ironically, when you look at the Rhode Island instrument that Bob Sherman used,
Yeah.
letter D in that same instrument says applicants for alterations of activities who cannot meet the minimum setback standards may apply to the council. That is for a variance.
I'd say that's
In section 120. So Rhode Island does offer a waiver.
a remedy,
variance,
or, yeah.
and we indeed do in 172.12.
You're gonna use
I don't
the,
know the numbers.
have you got the
The way
paragraph?
it's standard within our bylaw, I think it's
Yeah, you know, right here.
172.
I think it is.
172.7.
172.7,
That's
I
weird.
correct. So when this all came up, I mentioned to Drew, I said, you know, let people ask for a waiver and let's look at each case individually to see how egregious of
Right.
an issue it's going to be for the floodplain. And let the commission decide on a point by point
Sure.
basis.
Mhm.
And we have an outline procedure for waivers, you know, for good cause or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So anyways, enough said on that. Let's get to the specifics of this project.
No, but that's important, information to fill in, so everybody's on the same page.
Not yet. Okay, no problem. Yeah, we'll hear you. Thank you. Okay, so if there's other questions or comments about the specifics of this proposal.
Yeah, I have a
As
few.
presented, sure.
All right.
Steve.
So, first thing, Mark, looking at the plans, I don't see any exterior stairs. Are they exterior stairs from the deck or the front deck to get down to grade? Are they?
The front deck, there are stone steps,
Okay,
yeah, coming
All right.
straight out.
so you got an elevation 14 and then you get an 8.22.
Yes,
So you
yeah,
got
there's-
5 feet,
There,
so,
there's 3 steps immediately next to the deck, and then 4 more steps lower down. To
okay,
get to
okay, there's nothing off the rear deck then, right?
And off the red deck, by Mark White, and 425 Norris White, they go adjacent to the barn, so it's all incorporated in the deck. I can
I
point
can
that out.
sketch it out. They believe they come down with this.
It's just like they would come out right here and float at this point right here, so they wouldn't extend beyond the proposed deck.
Okay, all right.
It's all incorporated into the deck.
Next thing is a note about, and the mitigation planting, landscape plan designed by others, there's no landscape plan. So I understand the notes are in, where you have the mitigation buffer, but
This
there's no
one,
landscape plan.
that is a typo. It's our mitigation and our plantings shown on this plan. It's not.
Okay, and then because on the proposed, well, in the existing plan, you have lawn noted 3 times, but proposed plan, you don't have lawn noted at all. So is that your intent to have this all lawn and meet
Correct.
lawn standards? Okay, so the plan can be corrected with that. Next thing, you mentioned this is gonna be on a foundation with flood vents. So is it a wood frame wall or is it a concrete wall?
The lower wall will be a concrete wall.
It'll be concrete on the front, but on the back side, it'll be a wood wall,
Okay, the windows and doors?
in some areas, yes.
Okay, so this does not meet regulation 25.2. Because this is gonna get wave action. So would you guys be open to put it on pilings? To meet regulation 25.2.
25.
I'm sorry, 25.5, I'm sorry. Look, you want to remember that, 25.5. The velocity zone is in 25.4 A zone for those two. Since the velocity zone is within 14 feet of the full height wall, you're gonna have wave action.
Right, I mean. I believe that since there's an existing foundation, it's even bigger than what we're proposing. As long as it's properly designed, it will not exacerbate erosion in adjoining areas that a foundation could be allowed.
But it doesn't meet regulation 25.4, I stand corrected, 25.4 for A zone. If you have I did my little sketch here. If you have a velocity zone here and 14 feet away, you have an A zone. Waves are not gonna stop. You're gonna have wave action. When I'm standing there in the back of that property, I could see all the way from South Cape Beach and I could see Martha's Vineyard different. So you get a lot of fetch coming in there.
Well,
So you're gonna have waves hitting that wood framed wall and causing erosion and damaging the structure. So if you put on pilings, the waves will flow right underneath the structure. The structure will remain intact.
I understand the request and I can confirm that number one, it will meet building code standards. Number two, that I'm still a little confused. Are we talking 24A, B, or 5?
Hi, I'm sorry. I had the old copy, this is new version. So regulation 25.5. When alterations within a zone of a land subject to coastal storm forwards within 150 feet of a coastal water body, the following shall apply. Waves 2 to 3 feet high, too small to be for an area to be classified as a B zone, but still capable of causing structural damage and erosion to occur in the base flood conditions in many coastal A zones. When you look at the map, this is a coastal A zone. I understand that the foundation and the walls will meet building code compliance, but it's not meeting regulation 25.5. Because you're gonna have waves there. No, it's on pilings, then, yeah, waves can flow in. Just a landscape plan. How many trees will be removed?
There was 9.
No, okay. It looks like, is it, how many new trees?
9. proposed.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay,
9 out of 12. then.
okay.
Well, they said 12 degrees, we didn't get enough narrative. I don't know.
That's right.
And then,
That's what took it on, that I had.
Yes.
okay, so, and it says proposed tree typical, is it, in the notes?
Yeah.
Eastern red cedars and.
Yeah.
Scout oaks, okay. And then, what's the dimension from the BBW to the corner of the house? I see one from the BBW to corner of the deck. If it's showing post, but I mean to the house.
I can provide that, and we were basically pointing out the closest part of the structure, being 43.2. So, but I think you're looking for this corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, because that's, if you're gonna say, if you're talking about walls,
Okay.
you know, because that under the deck is open, but that's walls. Yeah, my biggest thing is regulation 25. 5. Yep.
Sandy?
I believe this is under a purview, but the, master flow neutral. I noticed it's going from a 3-bedroom to a 5-bedroom. And the lot size is 40,000 square feet, I think. What it said.
Nice. It is 20,000.
If I saw 40 somewhere in 20 of the others. What's the total lot size?
20,569.
I thought 40,000, well, either way. Still,
The
the,
total lot number is that
yeah,
excluding,
That's just up.
Well, right, well, yeah,
the assessor card is higher, the assessor card is like
Yeah,
48,700 something.
it's just under 30,000.
Yeah,
yeah, based on our survey of mean high water,
Right.
we have, 20,560.
so you've excluded some square footage of the lot. but,
Yes, if assessors went ahead, you know, if mean high water came across here, there would be a little bit.
But in totality, we're under 30,000, right?
Correct.
It is currently a 4-bedroom. The Board of Health has verified it's 4-bedroom back in 2002.
right,
When we replaced the septic back then.
right, but the flow neutral. Right, you can only have, you can't have 5 for 1,000, right? What did it say?
Chapter 108, you're entitled to 4 bedrooms by right,
Right,
and then you would need an additional 10,000 square
Square feet
feet
for
for
another
each
bedroom.
additional bedroom.
Right.
Over and above the 40,000 square foot limit, so square footage isn't there to support.
right,
fifth bedroom.
yeah.
That does come under Board of Health jurisdiction. However, the only way around that is to successfully have a variance. So we would have to condition a project to the balance on the back of the variance when granted. And that, I don't know, no one's ever tried that.
Okay, well, we can, number one, I'll review with Zach, the health
Yeah.
department. If we have to, you know, make changes, try to get a variance, et cetera, we'll address that.
That'd be an issue to get ironed out, I think, before.
Right, to take out a bedroom. All wondering if that was, you know,
Do that, because they're entitled to 4 by right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, Andy?
No,
Okay. Marjorie,
I'm good.
you good?
Happy to
Accelerate the
stay.
process a little bit.
I know. it's-
Sarah? Questions and comments?
I do have a question, actually, forgive me if this is not in the purview of the commission, but I see that the new larger footprint introduces 895 square feet of impervious surfaces. And is removing the 12 trees, and I also see that the home was remodeled 2 months ago. So I'm just curious why it took them home
I was supposed to be remodeled 2 months ago.
The narrative says that it was remodeled in February 2024.
Yes.
No,
Remodel.
yeah, that was the language in the plan that was submitted.
Yes.
Yeah, remodeled back in 2004.
Might have been a typo. It's like 2024. That makes more sense.
Yeah,
That makes a lot more sense, but it's curious.
okay.
And I'm sorry, Sarah, what was the figure for, additional impervious?
895 square feet.
895, you agree to that? 895.
Let's see if I can find where I found that.
Yeah, we only had a net 385 square foot change, so I couldn't just review that number.
Yeah, I think it might have been from the flow calculation worksheet. I was looking at the roof. Runoff. So it might have been roof. 95 square feet roof.
Where did you see that, Sarah?
I think it was in the flow calculation worksheet. Yeah. Mhm. Sure. Hmm. So I have to know
That's 17,588.
there's an increase in the number of years. I think I was looking for one as well. On some of these numbers,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think most
No.
of us even lower than that. But it does look like.
We
there's
all
an
do
increase
it.
Very safely, sorry.
in roof space, and I do know the footprint is increasing, so, we'll take that number, strike it in the record, but would be curious about, I don't know, adding to the footprint or why we're looking at this.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, the actual footprint of the habitable space of the project is being reduced by 84 square feet. It's the decks and, you know, which would have beyond posts and wouldn't have the walls associated with the foundation that does increase. So, you know, we feel it's a pretty close comparison to existing and proposed, and then based on all the other improvements that I've already mentioned, runoff, dry wells, flood code compliant building and IA system, et cetera, buffer zones, increased buffer zones, you know, we feel that's an acceptable level of change to the project.
You good with that, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a lot of disturbance.
Aaron, do you have questions or comments?
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, I just want to clarify, I'm looking at, you're using the existing leach field, correct?
Correct.
And is the reserve area for that leach field south of the install of the new?
Correct.
Pipe? So that is the reserve.
Yeah,
area.
this the dotted.
Okay. And I know somewhere on this plan, I'm looking at it on my laptop, moving things around. I believe that the most recent soil tests were in December of 2001, which established a groundwater elevation at 1.1. Sure.
Yeah,
That's what I'm confusing this with the project.
Yes, yep,
December, right? December 2000.
correct.
21, or 2001. Was there any deep holes done for this project to see if that groundwater elevation has changed over the last 23 years?
There were not new estimates.
So you're confident that the 4 dry wells that surround this new structure, proposed new structure, are going to be able to take all the runoff from this building? What's the contour level of those four?
They're at about elevation 6 and they're 2 feet.
It's like 4.50.
The rear ones, 4.50, front ones.
And the diagram of the dry well itself. I'm gonna just make sure that we do that. 6-inch minimum coverage, and you got 2-foot drop for the dry well, then you got 6 inches minimum for bedding with stone. So you're down 2.5, 3, you're only about a foot above the projected groundwater elevation back in 2001. Okay,
Right.
so you're confident that these will work?
Yes, given the very sandy materials, yes, we're confident that can work. I mean, I think we can, as far as the Board of Health and the septic work, these test pits would be acceptable because they were done under the new Title V. Right, so, we would use that for basis of design. If you were to request that we confirm it, we'd have to confirm it, but,
I mean, I'm going with what you have here. I'm a little concerned that those dry wells might not be adequate to withstand the amount of water coming off the impervious structures as presented. Those 4 dry wells being just that high above groundwater. Let's see.
we can take a look at that, maybe put a low profile structure that's wider and has more leaching area. I can look into that.
Okay. I think my other questions might have been answered in the same way. Okay, I'm all set. Yes.
I found it. It's vegetated areas that are going to be impacted.
So page
So
11 of the narrative.
Yes, correct. 895 square feet of total impacts to vegetated.
And you're okay with that figure? If she's a vegetative. Okay. Any last questions by commissioners before I go on to?
No, I just want to make sure that, so you found the notation and you're good.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for questions or comments from the public. Anybody who would like to speak?
My name is Tyler Franklin. I'm an attorney from the law firm of Rubin and Rubin, represent the applicants. I just wanted to circle back to this discussion about regulation 25 C7C. I can appreciate the chair's opinions as to incorporating Rhode Island's language. It's clear that there's a dispute or some ambiguity as to the use of the terms coastal wetlands and coastal features within regulation 7C, right? If I'm understanding it correctly, it's the chair's position, potentially other members of the commission, that land subject to coastal storm flowage is included within, or the intent is to include it within the definition of coastal wetlands.
Well, actually, it's the intent of the state of Massachusetts. It's part of 13140.
This commission is seeking to enforce a setback relative to criteria detailed in the regulations, right? So what should control is the definitions within the regulation itself, not necessarily the WPA, because you're not seeking to enforce provisions of the Wetlands Protection Act. You're seeking to enforce a setback within the regulation, and specifically a setback relative to coastal wetlands or coastal features. When there's a dispute as to what the intention is for terms within a regulation, case law is replete that there should be a focus on looking at what the intent of the drafter was. We're fortunate enough to have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Sherman. He put together a great affidavit. He detailed thoroughly his whole background looking into this issue, where he gathered the information, the intent in putting all that information in there. And he's explicitly stated that it was never the intent of himself, the drafter of all these regulations, of the wetland regulations, and specifically regulation 25, to include land subject to coastal storm flowage within the 50-foot setback. He explains that the use of coastal wetland, that definition was pulled from the Rhode Island Coastal Resource Management Program, and irrespective of, I guess, your opinion of Rhode Island, it's clear that that's what his intent was, and that was the resource that he had available to him at the time. And therefore, that's what the intent of that language in the regulation was when it's put in there. And that's still the language that's on the books presently. So if the commission obviously is working to change that language, but the case law, it unequivocally demonstrates that the commission is bound by the language as it presently exists. And when there's an ambiguity, as I just mentioned, the intent is read into it. And if we didn't have the affidavit from Mr. Sherman, maybe I would say, sure, you could look to the WPA and the definition of coastal wetland to fill those gaps. But we don't need to. We don't need to. We have the affidavit of Mr. Sherman. He details explicitly that land subject to coastal storm flowage was not intended to be included within coastal wetlands. Specifically, coastal wetlands is defined elsewhere within the regulations. Regulation 17 explicitly defines coastal wetland as essentially salt marsh. So I think to require a waiver here doesn't make, it is inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the regulation as drafted presently. I can appreciate that the commission may disagree with that interpretation, but when there is ambiguity, and there is here, as to those two terms, I think a court would definitely side with the affidavit of Mr. Sherman as to his intent in putting that language in there. I think that that's pretty much all I have to say on that, except that if you look elsewhere in regulation 25, there are specific, when you talk about setback, it's like a no-build zone, right? Or the term buffer zone, no-build zones. There are explicitly in regulation 25C2B and 25C2D provisions just for land subject to coastal storm flowage, where there's prohibitions or there's requirements to keep areas, naturally vegetated buffer strips. And then you can contrast it with section 7C, and I think the only rational interpretation is to say that those regulations pertain to just development within land subject to coastal storm flowage. 7C concerns coastal features. When your property has coastal features, it's also within land subject to coastal flow. So it's the fact that there was two sections or two kind of ways to handle development within land subject to coastal storm flowage, I think also lends credence to Mr. Sherman's affidavit and supports his affidavit that was the intent of this regulation. So I can appreciate that times change, opinions of the commission change, but the commission is tasked with enforcing the regulation as drafted and consistent with the purpose and intent of that regulation. And we have unequivocal affidavit as to what that was. So I would hope that the commission takes that to heart and recognizes that for this project and others that are subject to the existing that there is not a need to request a waiver. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Anyone else from the public? Anyone online, Dan, would like to comment? I know Drew's waiting, I'll get to him.
Not that I'm saying that, no.
No? Okay,
Can I just make a comment? Or are you gonna go to Drew first?
go ahead, Reggie.
No, I just wanted to say, I appreciate all of your comments on what you're referring back to. But case law precedent also respects and puts state law above town law, above bylaws, and the creation thereunder, and the legislative intent as well. So we take it all in and we respect all of it. I think the legislative intent of Mass General Law, Chapter 131 says if there is ambiguity, then you have to go with the state law. It's there. So I don't know, I don't want to start a big debate, but I served time in the legislature. It's something that we take great pride in. A lot of people don't. It would probably create as many problems as we solve, but I wanted you to know that we have, as an individual, consider it, but also look and respect the Massachusetts general law.
Respectfully, Commissioner, I would just point out that I think the distinction is that you're seeking to enforce a setback that's detailed in a regulation. So the context of that setback is important. The terms in the regulation are important because you're not seeking to enforce a setback that's detailed in the Wetlands Protection. So the definition of coastal wetland under the Act, I would argue, isn't necessarily dispositive on the issue. What you're trying to determine is what was the intent of the regulation and the requirement to do the setback within it. And as I mentioned, and that's supported by the affidavit of Robert Sherman, the intent was not to create a global 50-foot setback for any project within land subject to coastal storm flowage, but instead to apply to coastal features, which would be contiguous to coastal beaches, coastal wetlands, coastal cliffs and banks, rocky shores, and existing man-made shorelines. So,
Thank you. Drew, if there's comments that you would like to make?
Yes, thank you. The first comment I want to make is just on this particular subject about setbacks. I know we've kind of beaten it to death, but I do have one singular point to make in regards to the setback, is that if the interpretation is that in order to meet a 50-foot setback from the edge of the flood zone, so in other words, where the 100-year floodplain meets the X zone, and you have to achieve a 50-foot setback from that line, wherever it happens to be, and you're dealing with a property that is literally surrounded by land subject to coastal storm flow, it seems to me that that's an impossibility to achieve. I think we can all agree on that no one can pluck their house up out of the flood zone and move it 50 feet away from the flood zone. It's a completely arbitrary expectation. I hope we're all agreed on that. I think it just makes sense. So it begs the question of why you're requiring a request for a waiver from a 50-foot setback to a resource area that the property owner is literally surrounded by. It is impossible to achieve. So what is the point of asking or requiring a waiver of a 50-foot setback to a resource area that you are surrounded by? I really have a legitimate question as to the rationale behind that. Moreover, if an applicant were to request a waiver from the 50-foot setback to land subject to coastal storm flow, and their house is in the middle of the flood zone, so they can't possibly achieve that, what would be the expectation in the deliberation from that point on if the commission were to accept a waiver? All you're doing in requiring a waiver is recognizing the obvious, that you can't achieve a 50-foot setback to the flood zone, no matter what you do. So it begs the question of what is the point of a waiver in that scenario? I just think the commissioners need to think long and hard over that, because requiring a waiver for something that's inherently obvious doesn't make a lot of sense in general. So that's what my comments are on that. So really, and if furthermore, if you were to accept a waiver, where does it go from there? Your chairman hasn't really explained that in any form of detail. How does the deliberation ensue? Okay, so you recognize the house is surrounded by the flood zone. Great, that's already known. You can look at any flood zone map and come up with that without even having to go through a waiver process. So what's the point of a waiver? My next point deals with Commissioner Cook's citation on section, I think it was 4 or 5. I'm not sure, Steve, which one you were referring to. 5.
Yeah, numbers change.
Okay, but 5, yeah, so I remember waves 2 to 3 feet in height, too small to be classified as V zone, et cetera, that's the section.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the last sentence of that section, it says, other walls may be permitted upon a clear showing that said walls are properly designed and will not, in a storm flowage event, exacerbate erosion in adjoining areas. So by virtue of having a foundation with flood vents, that is providing flood storage capacity, and that is a type of wall that is specifically and properly designed that will not result in exacerbation of erosion to adjacent properties, adjacent areas. So I just wanted to kind of point that out because that wasn't really being mentioned, and it is part of that very same section. And I believe that by virtue of making a home flood zone compliant with flood panels, it absolutely meets that definition of a wall that is specifically designed to be resilient in the face of a flooding event and provide compensatory flood storage.
My only question on that, Drew, was is that the line for the velocity zone is 14 feet away from the back corner of the house, so that's
Right.
just a line that goes sky, so you're gonna, if you have a velocity zone, what's gonna say that the waves aren't gonna roll in past that imaginary line?
No, I understand that, and I have
That was my
recommended,
concern, yeah, I agree with you on the design, and I'm sure, yeah, that will be designed to an A zone. But within 14 feet of an open fetch, I think you're gonna get, V zone conditions in a storm event.
it's quite possible, but
There's nothing stopping that there.
it's quite possible, but it's still speculation, is my point. And I'm not discounting or discrediting your comments, Steve. I'm just pointing out that it is speculation. And that the walls are being designed as best as possible to be resilient in the flood zone per the building code. In terms of like the catch basins and leach basins and stormwater runoff, I think it's important to think if the current runoff from the existing structure has caused problems. And that providing catch basins and leach basins to capture stormwater runoff should be really viewed upon as nothing but an improvement. Because they don't exist on the property today, and it would be a good question to ask probably the homeowner, has he experienced a lot of localized flooding from roof runoff? I think that's an important consideration to ask of the applicant to see if that's ever really been an issue in the past. So I'll go on to my comments. I just really think the commission should think carefully about this whole waiver request, because all it is asking the applicant to prove something that is inherently obvious. They can't achieve a 50-foot setback to the flood zone. Nobody can that's in the flood zone. It is literally impossible. So why a waiver just to prove that? So that's really.
Can I just kick back a quick response? You could
Yeah.
say that to almost 50% of regs and bylaws that exist, a great deal of them. You say, what's the point? It's fairly obvious that A, B, and C.
It's a
But if
spec-
it's there and you start setting a precedent of saying, well, it's so obvious, let's not require there to be the application, then you get into this long rabbit hole for so many others for which that would apply.
But I'm only talking about this particular application and this particular property, Marjorie. I'm not talking about, I mean, you can go on with whataboutisms on a variety of other topics. We're focused on this property. It's surrounded by the flood zone. Would you agree or disagree that they can or cannot achieve a 50-foot setback to the flood zone? What's your opinion
I
on it?
wouldn't even speculate. I say, I believe that the applicants have already cited case law precedent. I believe that would set you up to say, then you have to file for a waiver, apply for a waiver, recognize that that's part of the general laws. That's what it sets up for a reason. Maybe it's antiquated. Maybe it doesn't apply here. It probably doesn't apply to 50% of the applications. I don't think it's on me as a commissioner or us as a commission to pick and choose. Well, it's so obvious here. Let's not have this waiver apply.
Well, let me offer.
That's just my opinion.
I understand. Let me offer you this, though. What if they were to ask for a waiver of other provisions other than one as obvious that they can't get 50 feet outside land subject to coastal storm flow?
What if they ask for it?
What if they ask
I don't
for
understand your
a
question.
waiver from other concerns other than the fact that they can't achieve a 50-foot setback from land subject to coastal storm flow? I'm only pointing out in this particular scenario that you can't achieve a 50-foot setback to land subject to coastal storm flow. So why do you need a waiver for that specific situation? Why do you need a waiver from that particular situation? You can ask for a waiver from other situations, but one that is so obvious, and I don't think any of the commissioners can really deny how obvious that is. You can't remove your house from your lot and get it out of the flood zone. It's not possible. Do you disagree with that?
In this particular case, you may
Yes.
be right, and I'm not gonna say, because I'm gonna walk the property with you if you want to do that. You're 99%, you're probably right on this particular waiver. I'm just pointing out to you that as a commission, I'm often told it's not within your purview to ask about square footage. And I'm just pointing out if the requirements are such that they apply to every other person, every other applicant that comes before the commission. I don't know why they just don't go through, do the application, everyone says, well, of course, that's obvious, but you could cite that for probably half the cases that come before the planning board, the Board of Health, Conservation Commission. Well, you say, well, it's pretty obvious that that doesn't, but the law, the bylaws, the regs, they mandate it. So what do? Pick and choose, cherry pick which ones you want them to comply with and which ones we don't want them to comply with?
I think it's site.
Slippery slope. It's a slippery slope is all I'm saying. I respect your opinion on all of this.
Marjorie, may I finish my comments?
Of course you may.
Thank you. So I'll move on from that. I think I've tried to make my point as clear as possible when it comes to a waiver request in this particular instance. And everything should be case by case. Nothing really should be applied across the board, obviously. But so I'll go on to talk about that they are reducing overall structure in the 0 to 75 foot buffer zone to BBW. Reduction of lawn in the 0 to 75 foot buffer by 311 square feet. I already discussed flood vents, stormwater runoff. There is no impact to salt marsh and there is no impact to bordering vegetated wetland because there's no proposed alterations in those resource areas. They are proposing to remove 12 native trees within the scope of proposed activities. And they are proposing a 1-to-1 mitigation of that. But I did have a question, and this is just general curiosity for the applicant, is why the garage is being swapped to the other side that necessitates the removal of a majority of those trees as opposed to rebuilding it on the side of the house that it currently exists. And my last comment and recommendation is that I believe because the velocity zone is in such close proximity to the home that there should be an increase in mitigation to double the current mitigation that is being offered up, because that is partially or mostly within the velocity zone. And therefore, if you're going to establish a naturally vegetated buffer strip and that proximity to the velocity zone or within the velocity zone, it should require a higher degree of robustness than what is currently proposed. And no other comments. Thank you.
First of all, I let that go a lot longer than I typically would because I know there are several other projects tonight that will be coming before you people. And when they do, I won't allow that type of discussion to go on. It's just repeating the same old, same old.
Not really.
We've heard from everybody's side and. So, Mark, let me ask you, before I call for a motion. What is your preference on the different pieces of information that the commission has discussed that aren't part of the project? The coastal A zone issue, flow neutral issue, variance from Board of Health.
I think we'd like to request a continuance to, just provide a response on this.
Rather than.
Yeah.
What's on the table?
Correct, yeah, I think so.
Okay. Dan,
So when you look at it, May 9th is open, that's the next one, or you can go for any time after that.
May 9th is for the.
So May 9th at 6:45.
don't you speak? Is it a second? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? So, Mark, before I call for the vote on that, if you're bringing back.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll take a roll call vote. Marjorie? On the continuance.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve? Aaron?
Yes.
Thank you, Aaron. I vote yes as well. So it's the Thank you. Now calling the 639 hearing for 14 Catherine Circle, Robert P. McDonald Jr. and Tracy A. McDonald. This is a proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling, associated appurtenances, new Title V septic system, landscaping, utilities, and other associated work. Representative is Cape and Highlands Engineering. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433268. And this hearing is continued from 2/15 and 3/21/2024. Good evening, sir. Your name for the record.
Again, I'm not clear with Economics Engineering. This one, this was in the same boat, has not been presented yet.
Right.
Focus on this project, details on this one and we'll just see how it goes. So this existing property at 14 Capstan Road, we filed a notice of intent to raise the existing structure and build a new structure at the site. The property exists on Spoon Drift Cove. It's one of the little fingers over in that area, as well as an armored shoreline and creating buffers of 75 and 150. There's an existing licensed pier, ramp and float, as well as there's a sandy area that's existed from forever, as far as we can tell. As well, this house has been there for 30, 40 years at least, and then with a gravel driveway coming on Capstan Road. The proposal is to raise and replace the dwelling, situate a new flood compliant dwelling in approximately the same location. You can see the edge of this wood deck is a little bit set back from the existing deck. It is an increase in structure. This existing shed will be removed, and the project at mitigation proposed of 2-to-1 triggers 1,600 square feet of mitigation, which we've shown in green. There will be a new IA septic system incorporated. Again, roof drains. That's the proposal. There is on this one, I think might be the typo from the other one, a landscape plan prepared by a registered landscape architect showing all the different native plantings. In general, I think we have some of the same topics. We have not requested a waiver from regulation 25. It will be similar construction. I had responded to Drew's comment earlier regarding the wall. It'll be proper construction for the A zone that will meet building code requirements. But technically that's the wall, but we feel it'll be designed so that we're going to cite the regulation again, but it won't exacerbate or cause erosion. And one difference on this property is that it is outside the limb wall, which is the limit of moderate wave action. So per FEMA, we could expect waves from 0 to 1.5 foot on this property being in the A zone. It's the definition for an A zone. So that is a difference in this project. I think it's covered. Just a couple other little improvements or statistics. There's absolutely no lawn area in the 0 to 75, and there's very little that's existing and proposed. So as far as like nitrogen goes, it's a very friendly site. Will be mostly sand and native plantings throughout the extent of the existing house or the existing property. At this point, I just like to open it to questions.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to commissioners first.
I have no question. I'm fine with that.
You're all set?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Margie?
No, I'm all set.
Sarah, any questions?
Yeah, I'm looking at this where it'll be noted in the water table.
high groundwater elevation 0.10. There, underneath
Yeah.
your chambers.
Yes, it's so basically zero.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the bottomless system is at
Yes, systems on.
the bottom of the leach fields at 9. Drive, so right. Two of the dry wells are about 8. Two are way up at 12.
Anything else? Aaron, I'm coming over to you next.
I'm all set.
You're all set.
Yep, thank you.
Mark, this isn't a question, it's really not even a comment, it's probably more a request. than anything else. This is not unlike the other jobs, and quite a few jobs that have come before us. The date for all of these logs on this is July 27th, 2006. And, you know, if they were just 3 or 4 years old, I get it, but that's a long, long time. And, you know, maybe things are worse, maybe things are better, I don't know. But I hate not knowing when it's our responsibility to know. So as a request, I think when we have a raise and replace, that quite honestly, we're talking about millions of dollars being spent here. A couple of deep hole observations, they're not that expensive to do. And I think it would go a long ways for the commission to be able to assess the current groundwater elevation. I mean, maybe it hasn't changed. I'd be surprised, but. Anything's possible.
I mean, on particularly these last 2 sites, that we could even hand auger and put a observation well, you know, I assume
Going
something
down
like that
that
is fine. You know, acceptable versus this site in particular is even just hard to dig a deep test hole down here, but, you know, we will use an engineering practice that is suitable to determine that, but I think both projects will try to do that. And, confirm that.
No further questions. Questions from the public? Got all the commitments that we're missing. Anyone from the public? We're good? Oh, okay, then I'll go to Drew next. No public comment.
Okay, thank you. So my comments, well, I guess my main comment, because I think everything else has been kind of spoken to and addressed. Is that the mitigation that's proposed is kind of a little bit fragmented. And what I recommend is that mitigation areas be consolidated and clustered to run parallel with the top of the coastal bank, because that's really the true intent of where spatially mitigation should go. It shouldn't be broken up into fragments as you see on the current plan. It should be consolidated and clustered to truly form a naturally vegetated buffer strip. So that would be my recommendation. If the commission were to close and issue an order of conditions on this, that there be a requirement for a revised mitigation plan showing clustered mitigation running parallel to the top of the coastal bank, of course, with allowance to maintain that pathway to the dock. And then submission of a 3-year signed mitigation and monitoring contract between the property owner and a qualified consultant. No other comments.
Okay, thank you. Someone's going to hang down. If there's one question, I would accept the motion.
Yes, Chairman, make a motion for 14 Caption Circle for close and issue. Following conditions, Submission of revised mitigation planting. We have a contiguous planting plan for Drew's recommendations and submission of a signed 3-year mitigation monitoring contract between the owner and Qualified Consultant. And then, do we want to put in verified groundwater depth? Yeah. Verified groundwater depth.
Please. Can I? Yeah, verify groundwater depth and confirm roof drain functionality or something like that. I think that's where you're going with that.
Well, I know.
Confirm.
Yeah, because if you're saying that the dry wells are going to be 3 feet or 4 feet below that elevation, and then you run a test hole and you find groundwater at 0, then you know you get 4 feet. Okay. That's it.
Okay, so we have first, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Marjorie is second. Motion made and seconded. Up for discussion, deliberation by commissioners. Anything? You good with the motion, what we have for conditions? So,
There's no mic. There's no
I
microphone.
just wanted to, you have very good questions. I just wanted to hear it.
Oh,
well, but repeat that again.
yeah, is there any conversation about the expanded footprint? Right next to the water?
Oh,
Well, that's a mitigation. Covers a lot where it isn't mitigated now. Have you been to the site? Yeah. So, pretty clear up there. Yeah, what opens up, with mitigation is going to be upright, and the mitigation is going to be on the coastal bank between the house. So when you have,
Make up.
when you have a lot of footprint, say, okay, you're mitigating for that large footprint.
And this is a net gain?
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
resource area?
This is the area they have around the house. It's pretty much gravel and sand around where they're increasing their footprint.
Okay.
Is what they have there. So this is the back of the house, followed by this revetment wall. This is the front of the house.
Just looking for the total square feet of mitigation on the thing. Is that on that landscape plan?
It's over here, 1,600 square feet.
1,600, 1611.
Yes.
It's 2 to 1, right?
Yes.
That's the minimum under regulations law. All right, then I will take a roll call vote. I'll start with you.
Yes.
Sandy?
No.
Marjorie?
yeah.
Sarah? Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a no.
Is it kosher to ask if any of the commissioners want to state their objection to this particular?
Well, let's get, the content is 3 yes, 3 no. Okay, so the motion failed. All right, so let's go one step further and see if you want to close the hearing and deliberate further. Our next meeting, or you can close the hearing and deny the project without prejudice.
So at this point, point of information, at this point then, tie fails. And
Motion
we
does not
have,
carry with it.
I'm sorry,
A motion does not carry with it.
the motion does not carry. So at this point, the options are what?
What I just mentioned. You can, that's motion statement, so we're right back to where we were. We're
Yeah.
back in deliberations, that motion didn't work. So there are 2 options here. You can make a motion to close the hearing and deliberate. We have 21 days to deliberate and issue a permit or deny a permit. Or you can make a motion to close the hearing and deny the project without prejudice. Those are really the only 2 options to have left that I see.
Okay.
Yes, Mike.
So if it's been denied closing, so it's still open, so I can.
It's still open.
I can
Yeah,
speak.
we're still. Yep.
I've gotten a request for a revised mitigation plan. And groundwater monitoring. I mean, I would like to provide information to the commission that could get an approval for this project, I guess, so now I'm kind of, stuck. I'd rather, at this point, I'd rather continue and try to provide those two requested items and hope for a better result, I guess. Usually I don't get the privilege of knowing how you guys are gonna vote, but fortunately.
We don't even know.
Yes.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, I
They're
know
all-
how you're gonna vote right now, at least today, so I mean, those are. I haven't heard any other issues, so far on the table, so, I mean, I would like to try to get this project approved, so I guess at this point, I'd either like more feedback and, to request a continued.
So we're back to commissioners on deliberation.
So
The representative to the applicant is interested in having continuance rather than us taking a motion, me taking a motion to close the hearing with one of the two options, either deliberate for the 21 days or not without prejudice.
So continuing the discussion is not on the table, not an option.
We can sit here and deliberate all night if you want. I know you said you.
I do
want.
No, I don't want to deliberate all night, but I do think the applicant is sharing a frustration that I have,
Sure.
which is sort of unusual.
Right.
But is that I didn't hear any objections while we were all discussing it. So when we came up for a vote, and there were not just one, not just two, but three no's, I think the rest of the commissioners would benefit from knowing what the rationale was, if you'd like to offer it, obviously, it's, your prerogative, but I
Well, it's gonna
think.
help
What?
Mark too.
And help Mark too, so that he'll know how to come
I
back
don't
to
mind
us.
starting off. I mean, we had a lengthy discussion in the first hearing.
The first hearing.
About regulation 25. Regulation 25, and it's subject to coastal flow. So that's actually.
Oh, that one again.
What it is.
Mine also.
I say that with great love and respect, and
Mine
you,
also. That was, this is, a waiver. Not here. I have to go with my council. Gave us.
this is an interesting dilemma, isn't it?
Well, it is.
The whole issue of the waiver.
It is what it is.
I understand.
My own opinion is, and it's just my opinion, that, and Drew said, you can't pick a house up and move it. Correct. That's why you ask for a waiver.
Right.
We can't work within the framework of the regulation. So you ask for a waiver. And you work with the commission in regards to that waiver. Justify to the commission why you're building what you're building and where it's going, and look for ways to make it happen. And as Drew said, every case is different, case by case by case. If you grant a waiver for this project, it doesn't mean you have to grant a waiver for that project.
Totally
Every
agree.
situation is different. So if the applicant came and asked for a waiver, then we would have another piece to work with.
I see.
But for me, again, in my opinion, I'm working with the language that I have. And the opinion of town council. And until that language changes, or the opinion of town council changes, I'm not changing. Why would I? I mean, it's what I see.
I
And I'm not interpreting anything. I'm reading it. It's plain language, reading it. Just as you said, if there's ambiguity to this, you fall back on the law.
Yeah,
And that's why we asked the town council's opinion.
opinion at that time.
And this has been brewing for a long time. I mean. So,
Which is the point of information. I was not here for that last hearing. I was here for that.
What, and Sarah, what did you? Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do find the discussion about, regulation 25 very compelling, includes the direct read. I also don't see compelling need that's been met in the documentation of this project. I think it's a really highly sensitive area.
It's a highway, what?
A sensitive area.
Okay,
All this disturbance. And I think it's our job to really, zoom out to 30,000 feet. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but take a look at the picture, you know, we have all of these individual parcels that are creating these high degrees of disturbance. Introducing impervious surfaces, there's a septic system basically in the water table here, and the cumulative impact is not addressed in the base plan. That's for us to think about. So I'd like to know why this is necessary.
I'd like to again request.
Yeah, okay.
Is that in
So,
order?
You heard from Sandy, you heard from her, you heard from me, so now you know whether.
I do, I really, and I appreciate that, and that's really, you know, question marks.
Right, so, as far as in order, I accepted the motion and it didn't carry, so we're back to deliberations, which is
Yeah.
what we're in now. And if the applicant wants to change his mind and ask for a continuance, that's perfectly legitimate. And I would honor that.
Okay, I would as well.
Request a continuance to May 9th.
648.
648.
Is there anything that any of the commissioners would like to request of the applicant that should be brought forward?
I am.
You know what's going on.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
As long as you're comfortable with what you. Okay, so we have a request and I will accept the motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Motion made in second. Roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yeah.
Marjorie?
Yes,
Sarah?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we'll go to the. Thank you. What was the time on that?
6:48.
6:48. Calling the 6:42 hearing for 132 Shore Drive West, Jeremy S. Eisenberg, trustee, Amanda Eisenberg, trustee, Amanda Eisenberg, trust, 2006. This is a proposed invasive species removal and restoration planting, representative of Environmental Landscape Solutions LLC, notice of intent, DEP number 433281. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Tyler Goodrow, Environmental Landscape Solutions, representing the applicant Jeremy Eisenberg for the proposed restoration at 132 Shore Drive West. I met with Drew on site last fall, and we identified many invasive species within the buffer zone to the coastal bank, including invasive bittersweet. Not on the invasive list, there's a lot of rugosa rose, shrub honeysuckle. Essentially, the entire buffer zone is 90% covered with invasive. So the proposed restoration planting outlines some of the existing shrub area to remain, but to replace with shrubs, and then to mitigate with appropriate native coastal dune grasses and some pollinating perennials. We are also doing a small area within the coastal bank, 389 square feet of a bare area. So there's no removals within that area in the bank. It's simply mitigation in that area. The area beyond that is approximately 336 square feet of Phragmites australis. The proposed methodology would be injections. And then once the Phragmites are removed, we would also mitigate that area as well. We received approval from Natural Heritage, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. Questions from commissioners?
Yes.
Is there any alternative to the glyphosate that you're recommending?
Yeah, so the reason that we use glyphosate is that we use a wetland approved herbicide. The herbicide has a protein in it that doesn't affect aquatic species. It affects the vegetation that's there. A typical application is we do we use a backpack sprayer and we apply it directly one time throughout the restoration. Then what we do is we remove the treated vegetation and remove it and dispose it off-site. And throughout the monitoring, any treatment beyond that would be in lengthens, and we use a cut and stem treat method. It really is the only way to
Bless you.
truly kill these invasive species is to use the glyphosate. It also destroys the cell wall of the plant as opposed to, say, a vinegar that just burns the leaflet. The plant still subsists. What we do when we cut too is we also leave the treated vegetation, the root systems to hold the bank, and it translocates about 48 hours. So it really is the only way to truly remove the invasives when we're intending to do the restoration. And it's a short window in the front end of kind of being bad, but the idea is that over time, we want the natives to really take over, and we don't want to be battling them 10, 20 years from now and having to come back. We really want to do it one time and do it right.
And is there any persistent in the environmental use of, you do remove the stumps?
Yeah, so we don't use machinery to remove the stumps. Once we implement some of the mitigations, sometimes we source sand to plant a lot of the dune grasses species. Sometimes we source some sand to offset that, but there's no big removals. So we want to keep the root system, then it dies off. Then the grasses that actually have very, very deep root systems, as opposed to the rugosa rhodus, that just kind of ties up on the surface, really enhances that bank strength. And that's the reason for the vast majority of the plantings that are those dune grass species.
Okay, and the natural heritage sign off, there's no adverse impacts to the.
Yeah,
the
so,
environment?
and if you look at the site, there's only about 150 square feet. It's where we're doing the Phragmites, and they signed off and said that the treatment methodology was good and that the mitigation was appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Tyler, what species of plants are going into the velocity zone? It's a small area, but it's.
Yeah. So mostly the American beach grass and American dune grass. So we did two different types of grass species. It's the harsh environment that's there. So we do have a variety of species upland and in the buffer zone to promote the biodiversity. But for survivability reasons, the dune grass is really, and for the most part, the client was really trying to enhance the bank. And those are the American beach grass can get 6 to 8 feet into the ground at full maturity. So that was the reason for the choice for those.
It's 389. That's its total area is 389.
Yeah,
So, and is that total area all graphics or?
maybe a little, yes.
Just in
So,
the zone?
the 336 and the 389 make up
Yeah.
the 725.
Okay,
So this doesn't have the hatched area. This is the area of the Phragmites, and the entire area within the bank is this, the 725.
720. $300 altogether.
Yes.
Aaron, questions?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Napping on us. Up there. So we're all set. No further questions.
All set.
Questions from the public? Anybody out there in the hallway? No?
Any questions
No questions
from out
at all?
there? No?
Keeping in.
Nothing online.
Nothing online. Does Drew want to comment on this or? Still with us?
He is there, if he has comments right now,
He's muted on the.
Yeah. so.
No additional comments.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to comment, Drew. Okay, then I would accept the motion.
Okay, that's the motion for a closing issue for 133 Short Drive West with the condition of submission of a signed monitoring and maintenance contract between the owner and a qualified consultant for all native plans.
Thank you, Steve.
Second,
Thank you, Margie. Motion made and seconded. Any further deliberations? Hearing none. I will take a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes,
Sarah?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
You.
Interesting, we got their letter, but there's a couple that got it coming later that we didn't get the letters from that elsewhere. We'll find out.
Yes.
Okay, now calling the 6:45 hearing for 135 Daniels Island Road, New Seabury Marina LLC. This is a proposed marina expansion and improvement dredging. Representative is Ty and Bond Inc. Notice of intent, DEP file number 433283. We have a request from the applicant or the representative to continue to May 9th at 6:42.
There was, they did not consult with the harbor master or the shellfish constable before submitting the application. There was major concerns from the harbor master about navigation.
Navigational
They did,
issues.
yeah. So that this is a dock, this is their dock, this is their marina. They want to do an expansion with some dredging. The dredging was not as a concern from the harbor master. He had concerns over navigation that he wanted to address, and the harbor master themselves actually was hoping for a continuance. So they did request a continuance officially.
So they're gonna iron out whatever
Yeah.
issues they have.
Yeah, they have an I don't know if they're having on site, but they're already talking. So
Yeah.
they're gonna be working it out.
And it's just one of the piers, right?
To my knowledge, it's just one.
Right.
That,
I looked at both, it changes. I looked at the plan.
some of them were changing, but there was a new addition, I believe. Once we get the review for the continuance, I kind of.
Looks like there's a different orientation of it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was different orientation, which they needed to dredge to get the boats into that spot,
Yeah.
into that spot, so. But yeah, it's in their hands now. Navigation is
That's
not a
what
huge
we're-
concern there. If you're not aware of that, that is kind of the end of Daniels Island,
Yes.
where that little bay is, and it's extremely tight in there.
That's very good.
So they want to make sure whatever is going to be approved or looked at is going to be good for navigation before it is.
Ready to get it squared away. We only need another continuance anyway.
Absolutely, especially since dredging is involved, so that's always an in-depth process.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second,
Thank you.
would you like to take that second?
Yes.
Here,
Thank you, Sandy, for the second.
All right.
Motion made and seconded for the continuance. Any further discussion? None? I'll take a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yeah.
Sarah? And Aaron? You're muted.
Aaron, you're there, you're muted.
That's on you.
Hey, Dan, I'm so sorry. I just sent you a message. One of my dogs fell down the stairs. I'm so sorry. Can I just leave at this moment? I'm sorry.
We're good. We have a quorum.
Yep, we're good, we have a quorum. I hope that's
Oh,
all good.
I'm sorry. Sorry, thank you.
Good luck, Erin.
And I vote yes as well, so the motion carries 5-0. And Aaron is out for the rest of the meeting, I assume.
Yes.
Is her dog big or small? Does anyone know?
I don't know, it's like having babies.
It is. I feel so bad.
That's May 9th at 6:42.
It's probably small, a big dog. They don't care. Yeah.
Big dog, 16, let's see.
The little, right, the little one.
Beagles are off the wall. They're all indifferent.
Moving on.
The little
Now
one.
calling the 6:48 hearing for 62 Whippleville Circle, Eric and Saranen. Proposed raise of an existing family dwelling, construction and maintenance of new single-family dwellings with attached garage and high-end septic system upgrade. Representative is BSS Design Inc. This is a notice of intent. DEP file number 433282. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Names for the record and
Director, my name is Tom Bunker of BSS Design.
And, this is Eric Saranen, homeowner. Well, we've owned this house for 25 years.
Oh, yay.
So this is in, the, South Cape neighborhood. It's, you know, it's all flat and all in the flood zone, but other than that, particularly this house is not, it's not waterfront. But it is within 1,000 feet of the waterfront, being a wetland, and so that we have the requirements to do an IA system. So I have the house, I mean, that's the bottom is the proposed site plan, but on the, above that, on the plan, you see the existing house. And, so on the proposed house, we took the same footprint area, and, the existing house has a deck in the back, but we took the same combined footprint area. And we have basically the same house, but have a garage on the east end of the house. As you can see in the plan, the gravel driveway is the same leading up to the garage. The the grading, I mean, this house was, when it was built, the people had the forethought to put fill around it back then, and so we're basically keeping the same fill on there. So there's actually a slight reduction, 5.8 cubic yards of fill on the whole site, basically the same amount. So we're not adding fill, definitely. The coverage by structures and the driveway is the same. We're cutting back on some of the native vegetation, but then we'll plant native vegetation a little more at both of the property lines to keep the 20. I think the current is 22% vegetation, native vegetation, and it'll be slightly reduced, but it's to 22.5 now, and it'll be reduced by 1% to 21.2% of the native vegetation, keeping with the flood zone regulations, which require 20% of the native vegetation. So we have a buffer built up both of the side lot lines on there. And we have at least on that plan, I probably shouldn't even, that's, no, that was the plan that we had done, but I hadn't actually, I missed filing it a week ago. So I was talking about the existing plan that we have.
Okay.
That plan shows the addition of native trees, just the only difference. But just talking about the existing plan that was filed. Is the same, except that we've added trees, which I talked with Drew about. We do have the Drew has the nitrogen calculation, so that goes from 14.5 parts per million down to 8.5. So in my narrative, I said almost a 50% decrease. It's not quite a 50%, but from 14.5 down to 8.5 parts per million because of the IA system that we're providing on this. And so it is in a flood zone. There will be flood panels. Right now, there are no flood panels in there, so it will react better when and if there is a flood. We'll allow the waters to go in and out. So I see this as pretty much a one-for-one replacement with the new house for the old house, so that Eric said he's been here for 25 years, and then they want to retire here and be full-time residents and have a new house to move into. And that's what we're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
I have a question. Would you be willing to maintain or increase that percentage of natural vegetation? So you can bring it back up to that 17. I see there, it looks like maybe 6 trees that are being taken down, so.
Yeah, we have trees being taken down, of course.
One of them is a yew bush, which we have crossed off, which is, not a native vegetation to begin with, but there are some native trees being cut down. So if you're willing, we could add more native, bring it up.
Not
to what it
along
is
the
now.
back, and that's really need the room, but on the side, so I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, we have dry wells also for the roof runoff.
We have dry wells, we'll be compliant, we have a new system to protect the bank. Gonna put solar panels on the house.
Yeah, that's making it solar ready as part of the new stretch code coming.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting tougher.
On your face, um,
The back of the house is south, so where the panels will go.
Other questions?
Do have.
That's the old house.
Yeah. This is, see the proposed, the first floor elevation is 13.1 and the previous house 14.6.
Yes.
So you're lowering it.
We're lowering it because there was a kind of a big step up. We're lowering it because you can't have a basement. It's in a flood zone and there wouldn't be enough, either you have to raise it up to have headroom for a basement. But this is, we just lowered it because you can't get headroom there anyway. There's a storage space. It still complies with the flood
Okay, yeah, you
regulation.
might have problems with the building code. Because
Yeah.
the design flood elevation is a foot above the base flood elevation.
Right, and this is 2. Oh, the left, yeah, well, it is a foot above
That's
the
a 12.
floor.
To the elevation 12, yeah. Or is it
Right.
80, 12.
Yeah, the floor is 1.1 feet higher than the floor. So I have the 1 foot with the building code plus a 10, but if there are vents, if there's maybe ductwork there, might have.
So your framing has to be at 13.
The floor.
No, your bottom of your framing has to be at
The
13.
bottom of the
No,
door
that-
has to be at 13.
No, that's in a velocity zone.
No, that's 2 foot in the velocity.
Right, but the the flood zone is 12, so the framing will be above the flood zone.
Yeah, but there's the base flood elevation, then there's a design flood elevation, which is a foot above the base flood. Which is 13,
Right.
so it means that your framing has to be above the design flood elevation.
If it's, well, if that's the way the code works, then, I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, that's probably right. If it was within the flood, then if we have to do pressure treated joists, right? You're gonna have flood resistant materials in a flood zone,
Right.
so it depends on the materials. There is room vertically to go up a foot.
Yeah, it's on that plan.
Yeah,
That's a good
You get stuff in building plan.
wouldn't want that.
Yeah, no
We
worries.
make it through this, we don't want to get stopped there. Yeah, okay. So you put in, I mean, it's not going to see 35 feet anyway.
Right. That's just something I noticed.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? The footprint of the house is the same, you said, correct? And with the addition of the garage.
Including
The
total footprint is the same.
so the total footprint is exactly the same.
1 foot less, actually.
Yeah, we're actually calculating 1 foot less, but it's the same, but that includes the existing includes the deck as a part of the footprint. And basically we transferred the deck in, so it includes the garage.
So the deck going, but there's no deck.
There's no deck.
And that becomes the garage. And Aaron's gone, right?
Aaron's gone.
Okay.
Saving the dog. Make a great name for a novel.
Please, from the public first. Yes, sir. Can I have your name, please?
For the record, Raul Sardi, I'm a consultant here in town, and I just heard the talk about the flood zone. So the requirements for the A flood zone is the first floor, the first living floor is 1 foot above the flood elevation. So when it's in the AE zone, the bottom or the stringers that are not coming into play is the first floor. So the flood zone is elevation 12, first floor is 13 or higher. But the strangers can be within the range of that 1 foot.
No,
But I think-
that's not.
We'll check with the building
Oh, yeah,
department on
yeah.
that and see what they would require. Nobody will understand. We'll try. Yeah, good thing to check on.
Anything else on the public? Hearing none. Drew, any comments?
No comment.
No comments. Okay, I would accept the motion.
Yeah, make a motion to close an issue for 62 Whipplewell Circle. The condition of proposed lawn areas cannot exceed 10% of overall lot size, must be adhered to lawn standards under regulation 31. And then I want to add the conditions 8, this is the area to be restored with native shrubs, just work with the staff on what the shrubs will be.
Yes.
Okay. And Sarah's point about increasing
The
the
native is 22% or whatever the original was.
Increasing
22.5.
the vegetated area back to 22.5%. We could go all that.
You're flexible.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. 1 and 2. Any further deliberations by the commission? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Martha?
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote no. Okay,
Right.
motion carries.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm calling the 651 hearing for 41 Shore Drive, John Hogan. Proposed IA septic system upgrade, representative of Engineering Works Incorporated, owner of record Margaret M. Hogan Revocable Trust. This is an RDA. Hi, good evening.
Yes, Steve McAfee from Engineering Works representing the Hogans. They have a failed septic system that you can see is conspicuously located next to that leaching catch basin on Bluff Ave. They're upgrading their system to keep their leaching system in maximum feasible compliance with Title V and the national regs. So what we're proposing is a 2-compartment septic tank to a pump chamber and a leaching system up in the driveway area. The septic tank will have a sludge hammer in it, sludge hammer 80, S86. And variances have been requested from the Board of Health and granted. Yeah. Yes, yeah. They don't need nothing.
That commission.
No question.
No. Margaret?
No, I think I got this one.
It's 3-bedroom here.
That's 4-bedroom, actually, and we're looking for a 25% reduction in the size just to keep the footprint down there. There's some pretty mature trees that we don't want to get into the root system on.
Yeah.
And we think that with the sludge hammer, that's going to be sufficient area for the system.
That's 86.
Mhm.
Okay. So, any questions from the public? Anything from Drew?
Hey, Drew, you have any comment?
No additional comments. Thank you.
So we're all set. I've been here anything else. I'll accept the motion.
Stan, make a motion for negative determination for 41 Shore Drive.
Second Street. Made and seconded. Negative determination. Any other questions or comments before I call for the vote? We're good. Steve?
Yes.
Dan? Yes. Marjorie?
Yeah.
Sarah? Yeah. Watch it for a second. And I vote yes as well. Thank you.
That's how they're supposed to go.
It's just them right along, right?
Yeah.
Now calling the 654 hearing for 58 Crescent Road, Thomas Jacobs, proposed raise of existing single-family dwelling, construction and maintenance of new single-family dwelling, hardscape associated grading, appurtenances, and dehumidification septic system upgrade. Representative is Cape and Island Engineering, member of record, John F. Flanagan. This is a notice of intent. PDP file number 433284. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Again, Mark Dibb, with Cape and Islands Engineering. This project is a raise and replace. This one is a flood zone only project regarding resource areas. Pierce Road is to the west, neighboring properties all around the other three directions. The project just proposes to demolish the existing house and build a new flood compliant house, which consists of reconfiguration of the dwelling to reduce, so an actual improvement as far as the site layout. It's actually improving side setbacks. It's a zoning thing, but it's centering the house better in the lot. And you know, it's just a new dwelling with a screened porch, a patio off the back. This is actually would be a timber deck stairs into this building, into the building. Minor grading, which I feel meets other requirements for fill, literally less than about a foot of fill, just to provide landscaping around the house. And then just in general, the existing house structure, lot coverage. So on our plans, the lighter tan color consists of about 1,290 square feet. And the proposed footprint of structure with the shed removed is 1,419 square feet. So there is an increase of 129 square feet of structure on the property, which is about a 9% increase on just the house size. And just again, the environmental benefit of the project includes a new flood code house, whereas right now there is a basement, which would have a very low, potential living space well below flood elevation. So that'll be removed for no basement on the house. An IA septic upgrade again for this project. The existing paved driveway would be removed for replaced with a stone parking area. Some impervious areas being decreased for the project, and roof drain dry wells have been added. This one, since the leach field, similar to your other questions regarding groundwater, the leach field is not changing, but the elevation is up at 11 on this one, so I don't know if this would be appropriate to assess groundwater. I'm very comfortable there's at least about 5 feet of separation at a minimum for these structures, groundwater. And if the project, if it were to move forward, should actually reduce risk of storm damage and flood damage by just replacing a non-conforming house that could be significantly damaged by a flood, and as well as the shed. So by way of this project, we feel it's improvement for the property. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
One questions I have is the crawl space slab, what is that elevation?
This, I've recently confirmed that this house we built on a slab, so,
Still no crawl space,
correct,
okay. So then you don't need floodlights.
correct. Yeah, and initially I thought the porch, we had initially proposed a porch on sonotubes, only because of a Board of Health regulation regarding the distance to the septic tank. But they didn't want that change in, flooring, so we decided to move the septic tank so it would meet the dimensional setbacks to a slab construction. Yes, the new house would be built on slab.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? Commissioners?
So the new proposed patio, are these, the
We did not spec that in this instance, but, that is something I think the applicant could amend, the proposal in impervious patio.
I know we're running really late, so I'll keep this, just a question about the, strategy behind using dry wells instead of dumping. So, sort of, some that actually.
I mean, right now, the roof runoff in most of these projects is just dumping out onto planted areas or grass areas. I think it mainly because the sandy soils here, by putting the water into the native really permeable soils, it just allows the water to get back into the ground as quickly as possible. As soon as you do plantings in it, it builds up a loam layer, and chances are that it'll still run off somewhere, even with plantings.
I'm good.
Let's get over you.
I know, I should actually be flattered that you.
Other questions from the public?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Dan.
You said it was 129 square foot increase in the footprint? Is that what you said in the beginning?
Yes.
So is that 129 square foot increase, is that, you have the X zone and you have the AE zone? Is that just in the AE zone? Is that in the X zone? Or is that the mix between both?
It's overall site. The flood zone is on this side of the house.
Yes.
So,
It just looks close because you're losing, like, on the southern portion, you're increasing the distance from the border. So you're losing foundation there, obviously. And I can see some increase in the X zone for the concrete patio. So I just didn't know if that, quite frankly, if that whole 129 was in the X zone only, or if it was mixed between both.
it's mixed.
It is mixed.
The actual increase in the flood zone is probably actually less than 129, because I can see the dark brown area is bigger than the light brown area.
Yes,
So,
that's
but,
what
yes, it's overall site.
Okay. I was trying to see if the X zone was getting more of a square footage increase of the foundation,
Right.
or if the AE zone was. Only because our regulations just differ from each zone,
Right.
that's all. So,
But according to this line, X zone, it looks like 99% of it's in the AE zone, correct? Correct.
Both existing and proposed.
So we don't have a calculation for that. Just that shake off area for the screen port.
Yes, I don't have the calculation not including, on the existing, it's this red area, on proposed, it would be this red area. It's almost a wash, it looks like, it's probably within 10 square feet.
No, I'm just curious, just in case it was, say, all in the X zone, all in the 80. I just figured the commission should know that.
No other questions? Drew, any comments?
No comments.
Thank you. Would accept the motion. I believe I went to the public. Yeah, right.
Make a motion for close and issue for 58 Bears Road with the condition of pervious pavers for the patios. Okay.
Is that your maiden second?
Second, so the only condition is the permeable pavers.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Just checking. Motion made and seconded on the table for deliberations. Any? Good. Good to me. Roll call vote, Steve.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Archer? Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote no. My motion carries 4-1.
Thank
you. We're calling the 657 hearing. For 126 Shore Drive West, Heather Conway, proposed construction of stairs to access beach, representative of Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. This is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433285.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers, also with me this evening is the owner, Heather Conway. We do have a structural engineer who's in Florida on vacation, but he's on Zoom. If you have any, it says he's in the waiting room.
He's in the waiting.
Is that Andrew Bell? That's who we got. That's what I'm asking.
All right, let me, I'm gonna assume so, because he says he's the only one in the waiting room.
Okay.
With the color TV also himself.
So the project is located at 126 Shore Drive West, and you see very along Nantucket Sound, and the resource areas on or within 100 feet of the property are coastal bank, coastal beach, land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's currently developed with an existing dwelling, pool, hardscape. We're here tonight looking for your permission to install a set of beach access stairs as shown in the plan before you. We have provided you with a structural design plan as well. The construction access will be from the upland portion of the property through the patio area, down the path. All of the construction to install the vents for each section of the stairway are proposed to be done by hand using hand tools. There's a construction methodology that's enclosed on the structural plans as well as the site plan. The board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. And like I said, Lars Jensen is on to answer any questions for the structural that you might have.
What was the name again?
His name is Lars Jensen from Olympus. Correct.
Thank you. Commissioners' questions first.
Yeah, I have a question. It seems like when I visited the site, it seems steeper than this cross section that one shows.
Well, that section there is a surveyed section. I'd have to look at the section. It might just be the way the scale is drawn on that plan, but that is the actual slope that was surveyed.
Is that, you know, if that's a picture, it looks a lot steeper than this.
When did you take that picture?
Yesterday.
Yeah, so, also with this using is, Ramon from Woods Group. So the recent storm, and the commission is aware of this, or I should say the, Conservation Office is aware of this. The recent storm last week kind of took out the existing sand bank that was there. So what you see on that photo there does not match the plan because the survey wasn't done, unfortunately, it wasn't done yesterday.
Okay,
So that slope you see on the plan will be what's, right now, there's maintenance that was approved administratively.
Yes, they have continual maintenance of this beach stretch. You see where it is.
right, yeah, but I'm just thinking, okay, so I'm saying that, you have a 20'6" slope, then another 14'2" of flat, and an 8 foot down, so.
Yeah, so if you look at, pictures, I believe there's pictures in the notice of intent.
Yeah, I see a stake out in the middle of the beach, is that the end?
That's the end, correct.
These are the pictures that I took them right. From the notes.
Okay. Yeah, so those are the original pictures that show the slope that exists at the time of the survey, so. There's a top section that's planted with beach grass, it comes to that flat section, and there's a bottom slope section that comes down to the, you know, the current beach area. That's kind of what I would call a sacrificial dune area, so when these larger storms do come in, kind of heats up that sacrificial dune area, supplies some sediment salts to the ocean and beach area, and then the maintenance that's allowed to come back and replenish the dune, help protect that bank in the future.
So my concern is that the replacement structure on that sacrificial dune, so.
So the posts are going down, will be going down deeper than currently what's there. Yeah. So they'll stay.
But that dune gets
stability wise.
wiped out. So. This is typical minimum 6 feet on this plan.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's gonna be enough, so.
So the
And
low,
that dune gets wiped
so
out.
the way it's done, and I'm hoping Laura could be on it to specifically explain this, because I need this question. So, the way it's done, you know, you'll have the top section that's anchored in. And then it'll all be anchored in as it goes down the slope, and the bottom section will be anchored in as well. So once it's all constructed together structurally, it's one big structure. Even if the sand moves out, it's still connected, it's still connected as a structure, it's not just going to fall down. Okay, and then if the sand does leave because of the storm, we'd be able to take certain sections of the wooden boardwalk out, or the wooden stairway out, replenish with the sand, and then reconstruct those sections.
Yeah, I've just seen it up in the Salt Marsh Road Sandwich time and time again, you know, even they get wiped out all the time, so I'm concerned that the structure is going to repeatedly get damaged. Even though that, yeah, they're gonna have
Yeah, they are.
You know,
They do re-nourish there.
nourish in perpetuity, but
Yeah, there are other sections there with stairs.
Yeah.
I know one of the issues that we see sometimes is the bottom of the steps, not the bottom, but pretty much the last steps, last like 4 steps, the last set of landing that comes down can get ripped off in winter storms. Like we have no research or intense winter storms like we always do. Sometimes they do come off. So that was something that I didn't know if that could be addressed, whether it be by having the bottom stairs being able to fold up, or like you just said, they can come off and you can re-nourish.
We did talk about, you know, the way it's constructed, that lower section could be built in a section that could be removed during the winter time if need be, if that was a condition that made.
And you're open to that, no problem with that.
Obviously, we can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
absolutely.
it is something that we discussed initially.
Okay, so you're aware of it.
And he just sent me a picture of where he is, and it does say Mashpee Conservation Meeting. And then he's in it. I require to.
He's definitely lying.
yeah, 'cause
I sent them what Stacy had, sent me. as
Yeah,
far
that
as the
one
links.
didn't work, right? We got a whole new one.
We got a different
Oh.
zone number.
Um,
He's probably.
Steve, you were there, when you were there yesterday, you took a picture.
Yeah.
And was it, did you happen to get the other? Oh, we don't have, maybe, is there a way to get that, those pictures back up there again? In relationship to the other stairs that are already on site?
Yeah. You
Of
can see
their
the other set of-
neighbors.
You can see the other set of stairs beyond there.
Yeah. So here's my question.
All right, thanks.
And I defer to your superior knowledge here on construction. How are these gonna be anchored? Can you tell how this one's anchored? Not really.
You talking about the
The bottom
the proposed set of steps or the ones next door?
and the ones next door, I'm looking at, some of them are shorter than the others, and I don't know the perspective because obviously we're
Yeah.
not on the property.
It's a sand flowed in over that one, yeah.
But, what, how would you describe how those
So
stairs are gonna be
our
anchored?
stairs are anchored with the 6x6 posts, and that 6x6 post will be 6 feet into the ground. Okay, I believe
And what material is it?
it'll be a kind of a non-CCA timber 6x6 post.
Is that what the others would go?
I believe the ones next door are probably anchored with concrete. They're probably,
Some of the older ones might be,
Yeah.
I know the one that we just permitted, not just permitted, the permitted while I've been here for a year and a half, was not in concrete.
It was not in concrete?
What we're proposing is not in concrete.
But it's a wooden material, it's not a metal.
Yeah, you use PVC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'd be using pressure treated wood, so it would be wood, so it wouldn't be metal. So those, they'll be able to put those in the ground quite a bit, especially if they're digging by hand. That's for certain, and if they're not gonna be anchored in concrete, that would be nice for our purposes, because there wouldn't be any chance of it getting loose and being on the beach.
Yeah.
Other locations throughout the Cape.
That's what we prefer.
That's what we would prefer. If they're saying it'll be structurally sound, then that's for you to determine, but they are the engineers, so.
I was just wondering what you, and well, maybe Drew has a comment, what you, your commentary on, whether we prefer to have something there that disappeared in the winter or flopped up.
Something that would not be storm-borne debris if
Right.
it were to happen. And if that were to happen, I would recommend that that bottom area be marked, whether it be branded or just marked or something, so. If it were to get storm-borne debris and go down, not that, you'd be in trouble if you can get it or anything, but so that we know and we can start tracking it that way and say, hey, this location we've had this issue in the past, so is there anything you can do about this? We don't have that record yet, so anything like that would be fantastic. But enlarged one, so.
Oh, well, it's about time you showed up. And he's muted, so he can't answer
So-
me.
If you have specific structural questions, he can definitely address them, and he can probably address that lower section that we just discussed about, being, I'll call it seasonal, for lack of better term.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Good evening. The floor is yours.
So
Well-
Lawrence, we just kind of reviewed everything as far as what's being proposed, some of the structural design, and one of the questions was, could that lower section be what we kind of talked about at one point, seasonal, where we could remove it during the winter, during the main storm seasons?
Yeah, so generally that's absolutely possible. The segments between what we call the bucks that you see on detail 3 on S200 are just stringer sections, and they could easily be installed as bolted stringer segments, if you will, right? So for example, on that large side elevation, it's number 1 on S200 sheet. Let's say the segment between 9, 10 and down to the beach could be constructed in a way that segment could be unbolted at grid line 9, for example. And then, removed seasonally, or, somebody could say, we don't need that high. We're going to unbolt the last 4 or 5 steps from 10 downwards or so. Any of that is very easily done. Yep.
But that's an area that gets slammed.
I think you want to ask them about the anchoring.
Yeah,
So Lars, there was also a question about the anchoring of the posts. And I kind of explained to him that the posts would be 6 feet down. And it'd be a 6x6 timber post and they would not be set in concrete.
Yeah, that's correct. Is there a chance, I don't know if you can see the structural drawings, sheet S100 would be a good one to look at to illustrate what those embedded elements look like. Yeah, down there in the middle, the isometric drawing, those are a 3D rendering, if you will, of the box, and right next to it, number 4, shows you what elements of those bucks would be buried, right? And the system basically works as 2 6x6 posts that are buried from the grade line about 6 feet into the ground. And then we have what we often refer to as a shoe. It's a 2x10 on the flat. You see there on the about mid height of the buried segment of detail 4. And that shoe has 2 vertically standing 2x members and a 2x10 at the bottom. It's buried, right? It's acting like an anchor and a snowshoe, if you will, right? So it enhances the downward gravity strength of this buck as well as the uplift or pull-out capacity, right? So it's actually a pretty rigid system because all of that is buried underneath the beach stand. So that's how the buck works structurally.
but do either one of you happen to know whether it's similar or exactly like the other? I think there were another 3 homes on that strip that have stairs, and I'm not familiar with their age, but I was under the impression that they were anchored in concrete, the older homes.
The older homes definitely are. I know one of them we had up earlier, they're old stairs, they're in sonotubes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So does
Right.
that mean that we're moving away from that?
I would feel safe to say that in this case we are, and then that would be a good thing, because the locations I've seen with those sonotubes, they are quite exposed now.
Yeah, well,
So-
that's what I'm saying, and that's an area that gets slammed, I was saying, that gets.
Yep, as he said, it's, you know, sacrificial dune at the bottom that gets replenished.
Yeah,
I don't want to say
right.
daily, but it does get replenished.
Does get replenished.
Yes.
This
So Steve, are you comfortable with that? From a construction
I'm
standpoint?
still concerned with it that, you know, even with that, depends on how much of the dune gets washed away. If
Right.
enough of the dune gets washed away, then there's no support, but, the only question I have is how you're gonna move that set of stairs for the season,
Right,
because that's a lot of weight, so how you have to
And
stand
then-
in the dune and lift it, how, you know.
that's
that's-
right.
And then where you gonna put it?
What holds it?
Well,
long?
yeah, you can, you know,
Does it just fold out?
yeah, where do you put it after that? That's my concern.
Well,
is
we
if the width of
almost
the-
have to do the whole
If
thing.
the width of the stairway and the width of the walkway are the same, then you can't physically pull it and land it on the walkway, pull it up that way. You know, so then how are you gonna move it? You're gonna stand on the dune, you gotta bring it down the bottom, you know? What's the, methodology of that process? Yeah. So,
Yeah, if I could speak to that, you know, let's
Yes.
say if you look at the large section again, and the removable segment, I think reasonably would be from grid line 9 downward. You see at the very top between the grid marks dimensions, so from 9 to 10 is 4 feet, and then approximately another 3 feet down to the beach. So that gives you, horizontal speaking, it's a little longer, obviously on the diagonal, but horizontally in projection, it would be 7 feet, right? So that would still be movable by hand, and it could be moved up the stairs, let's say onto the middle landing, and just strapped down for the season. All right,
so
so
how are you gonna do, how will that be achieved? You have to stand in the dune and damage the dune to do that.
maybe, I mean, I'm, but movable by hand. I mean, how else are you going to move anything from a stair system? That's probably the least intrusive way of moving anything on or off, right? I think if you're very careful, you could stand at the end of the stairs on the beach and on the stairs, right? Unbolt the top and then move it up the remaining staircase. So I don't know how you could be any less intrusive than doing it that way.
Do that. And
But the other ones, the older ones, never dealt with that. They go
No.
right into the dune.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know of any stairs, quite frankly, in any town on Cape Cod that are removable. You know, some near harbor marinas, they have foldable segments that I've seen, right? For beach access stairs, I've not seen any that are taken out or partially removed at all, right? So that would be a bit of a novelty. However, it's possible to achieve that here, I think, with relative ease.
What a dilemma.
My question, I have a question. The 6x6 uprights are gonna penetrate the choir logs, correct?
Yeah, we
So-
would anticipate two that might, 6 and 7 grid lines, depending a little bit on the beach replenishment height, when it swims back. Yeah, 6 and 7.
Those are the only two that would penetrate?
Yeah, potentially.
And what does that do to the structural capability of the log itself? I mean, once the tide starts getting in there to do its thing, if we've got holes with 6x6 timbers, is it gonna tear that log apart quite rapidly?
Well, I don't
Yes.
believe, I don't believe the logs, they can kind of spread apart, move them apart slightly, and we did talk about this with Woods Hole Group. We could spread the
Right.
logs apart in order to drive the post down through them. The core envelope, if the core envelope was touched, the core envelope's much bigger. You know, I believe those logs are 20-inch logs, and the core envelope, you know, that, I think that thing's 15 feet long, and then it kind of wraps around backwards. What they talked about doing was cutting the top of the envelope and being able to penetrate through it, and then once the post was in, then resealing the penetrations with some type of glue to that post to help secure it.
And are you here to give testimony on this as well? From the
Sure,
local?
yeah, I've just been involved in the kind of putting this plan together as far as how it's gonna relate to the envelopes, and yeah, we feel pretty good about that. I mean,
Have you worked on a project like this previously?
not with stairs
No.
interacting with the envelopes, no, but, we feel like they'll be able to work fine. Yeah, they're at risk of being hit by storms
While they're.
no matter what, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and having those posts, as long as it's sealed around it and backlit properly, which we definitely want to make sure during construction that that's achieved, but we feel okay about that when we get it.
Any other questions?
It would be open for a condition to have things checked during construction for that.
Yes, and Laura's, I'm not speaking for the client, but spending her money, but Lars is gonna be observing as the structural engineer as well, and Woods Hole Group, to make sure that while all that's going on, you can condition
No,
that's not a
that's the
problem.
case. They
But
did
we've
check.
already talked about that. We have no problem with that.
Okay, so if that was the case, I would recommend the condition of them just sending us a report. Yeah.
Dan, so in the beach nourishment, was there ever a stairway here? Is this brand new?
There was a
Yeah,
stairway way back when.
Yeah,
that
the
was
top
kept-
still has a deck. on most of the
If you've been to the site up top, there's still a deck. That original staircase was never permitted. So when they permitted, and if I'm speaking incorrectly, just correct me after that. When they permitted,
So that little deck there.
yeah, when they permitted the nourishment, it was stated that if they
Yeah, yeah,
wanted
yeah.
a set of staircases, we needed to come back before the board.
That's the way we did it.
To permit them correctly. So that's why we're back there. So if you-
So the log you were talking about is horizontal. We're talking horizontal log, that's one of the proposals. Is to carve something out, retrofit it, and then re-engage it that way, so
Yes.
it would be at a 90.
Yes.
So in essence, we're replacing an unpermitted stair.
If you look at old historical photos,
Right.
you'll see the set of staircases that have been there
Yeah.
for many years. That
Mhm.
just weren't permitted like many houses along the Seabury coast.
At that time, people
Yeah.
just put them up.
Correct.
can I ask you or Drew, oh, is it time? I don't want to step on anyone else. Is it in order now? Can we ask?
We're still discussing. so,
Okay.
Sure.
Were there any other projects that you looked at that you would condition beyond what you've talked about, beyond having them bring the plans in? Because I'd love to see you have your stairs. I'm just a little worried because I know the area so well, it just gets wet. And they float around and I don't have to tell you, it's just,
It'll be one of those things we can keep track of, so if it does happen, obviously they'll have to retrieve it. At which point we always get, not always, but we do get notifications of, hey, there's a set of stairs or this washed up or whatever it may be. That's why I was saying earlier, if there could be a marking on it, not just so we can get it back to her, but also that we can say, hey, this came from here and it's only been there for a year, it's been there for 3 years, whatever it may be. So then we have an idea of that.
then we can learn more about it.
Then we can learn
because I
more about each.
Hate to keep.
Yeah.
Repeating the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So as of right now, we don't have that in system
Yeah.
in place, but I would love to get it because a lot of stairs like this are going out of age. And then you can
Yeah, they are.
fix them.
So would you be happy with that as a condition for tonight?
Which condition, which kind?
Marking it?
Just marking it, yeah, just marking it, anything but a Sharpie, you know what I mean? So, no, in all seriousness, I went to a location in Truro this week. The revetment wall looked like a medieval stockade pile. There was so much storm-borne debris on it, you couldn't see.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't see the rocks at all. It just looked like that. I'm talking telephone poles from streetlights
Oh, my
So,
God.
as well.
Well,
So you have to keep in mind stuff like that.
Uh-huh,
And that's where this idea came from, that we need to start tracking. So yeah, I would be up for a condition like that.
Okay,
And where are we with natural heritage?
yeah, where is that? You're the natural heritage. officer.
So it has been filed, we haven't received anything from them, I'm assuming what we're getting at from Natural Heritage is a time of year restriction similar to what we always get in this area.
Yes, we just had one for the house in the very end, and that's what they had for them, was time year restriction, which was not too difficult.
Yeah, so we have no problem with a condition going in there, I mean, it needs to, in accordance with Natural Heritage.
I'll also say one thing, if this project does get approved and close an issue with a permit, there will be a condition in the order of conditions for draining of swimming pools. Swimming pools not to be drained at all. They are to be pump trucked out or anything of that nature. So that is a boilerplate condition that will be in there, so please note that in the order of conditions if this is passed tonight.
But do you still recommend that we wait for the natural heritage?
We've
Report.
gone through this multiple times.
Yeah.
They get backlogged. with
Okay.
Things like this, but the condition is report from Natural Heritage with staff approval. If Natural Heritage comes back with it's at the time of year, then obviously that's not gonna be an issue. If they come back with anything further than that, we would then bring it up to the commission and that would be part of the conditions. But with this, we have conditioned it in the past, not with stairs like this, but with other projects that once
Mhm.
Natural Heritage comes back, we'll review it. If everything's good to go, then
Mhm.
staff will approve and it'll be good from there.
And it's just Clover that we're worried about.
Yeah, this is a piping plover habitat. I'm not too sure if they found
No.
turns or anything. I'm not too sure.
I think there are friends there too.
But this was piping plover, I know, for
Yeah.
one, the other location, which was the time year restriction.
Think we're good? No other questions? Questions from the public? Is there anything, Drew, that you would like to make comments on?
Yeah. Do have some comments. So this coastal bank recently, over a series, a long period of time of adjudicatory hearings and appeals, was finally able to construct a soft solution coastal bank stabilization project, as well as the two neighboring properties to the east, I believe. 118, 124, and 126 Shore Drive West all underwent coastal bank stabilization projects approved by DEP through superseding orders of conditions. All three banks recently experienced some pretty significant storm damage recently. So if anyone went out there, you probably saw that because the restoration work, I think, just began today. I have major concerns over the impact of the portion of the stairway that's going to be in the velocity zone. And particularly considering that these restoration projects were very recently completed within the last year. So my concerns over, the stability of the bank, the impact of the stability of the bank, as well as comments from Natural Heritage. There had to be special permission granted from Natural Heritage and Mass Audubon just to do this repair because it's outside the time of year seasonal restriction. So I think that my recommendation would be to request a continuance in receipt of Natural Heritage's letter. I wouldn't try to, guess what they're going to say based on, that these banks were recently granted permits for restoring the bank's stability. And to come in and put a stairway so soon after that kind of project, I think it warrants requesting of the applicant a continuance to hear from Natural Heritage, see what they have to say about this situation. Also, I think that the potential for storm-borne debris is quite real. There isn't a single stairway along this stretch of coast that hasn't experienced some degree of damage, usually losing the lower half to the lower third of the stairway, even in minor storms. So I have concerns over this. And I think it's in the best interest of everybody to wait to hear from Natural Heritage, and also for the applicant to come up with a plan in the event that this does ultimately get approved through an issued an order of conditions of how they're going to retrieve storm damage debris. It shouldn't be incumbent upon the town to hold that responsibility. There are access considerations about getting down to the beach to retrieve what are potentially storm-borne debris. So I think there needs to be a plan from the applicant to have a contingency for that type of situation, which is quite real. And based on the narrative, there is no plan right now for that contingency, which will happen inevitably. So given, the lack of information on this and the lack of feedback from Natural Heritage at this point, I would strongly recommend a continuance.
I do have another thought. Yes, Sue, and I agree with Drew was saying and, about my early comments. If there's a way that it can be designed where maybe the platform or the walkway cantilevers out and they could be like a lightweight ship's ladder, aluminum ship's ladder that can be retracted up from the walkway that's narrower than inside the railings, and then it can be just pulled up. But it's
Kind of like
from there.
aluminum
So,
component too.
what Drew?
Lightweight aluminum component to make it easier.
Yeah.
Is a possibility as well.
Right, so if
So,
if this gets cantilevered out a little bit more, and then you do your ship's ladder here, that can be pulled back up. It's like, it's inside the railings, then we don't have to worry about storm-borne debris, and if this part of the dune gets washed away, the walkway still remain, and then, it lessens the impact. That's just one thought that I just.
So each one of those, who knows how many feet is that? Is that extending out?
It says 8 feet right here. So 8 feet from there, so you could, maybe cantilever this out another 2 feet further, and then the ship's ladder can hit, the bottom of the dune here. Because this angle, you need a little steeper angle. for a ship's ladder.
And then how do you anchor the bottom though? What's the
Doesn't-
engineering? It doesn't, it's
No,
kind
it
of
just
plops
sits in
there
the
on the
sand,
sand,
so,
yeah.
yeah. And then if the sand increases, you can, lift it up.
Huh.
And then it solves that whole debris issue on the bottom stair. Yeah.
With manual cranks on the
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah. Yeah, but and it's lightweight and you pull it up because the weight of that wood is heavy versus.
we can discuss that. Clearly, we're gonna need a continuance for the Natural Heritage, so we can discuss the bottom section.
Yeah.
With the structure.
Yeah.
You know where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
But I like that idea about the aluminum. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I think I just say a second. I have 4 young kids. We want to be able to walk downstairs and go to the beach. That's why we bought this house in this location. And I'm just, I don't know how the whole process works. I'm disappointed. I thought we had had conversations with Drew before and that there weren't such huge concerns. And the beach nourishment we have to do right now, I thought that like we're hiring people to go out and watch the birds and the wildlife, and it just felt like it wasn't an issue at all. That they were happy to come out and watch, and we're working with them closely.
Who's that? Who?
In order to do the nourishment, due to the sand loss from that April 4th storm, we are working with Natural Heritage right now, so just had a Audubon survey done on Wednesday.
So the Audubon was a part of it.
And they've been so cooperative.
Yeah,
And
they
I
good.
just like, continuance means like, like more money, more coming out, more like we worked so hard on this design, and I'm disappointed. We had a lot of experts collaborating on it, and I just,
It's
I'm just,
frustrating.
as
isn't
a
it?
homeowner, I'm really disappointed because we talked through all these considerations and it's, I know you have your agenda and that your considerations are important. It's frustrating. For set of stairs, we're gonna have to.
I'm not so sure, I shouldn't say anything about the cost. Because I don't know,
I mean,
but
like,
the continuance doesn't have to be a
Process
very long
Then a
continuance,
long-
Mr. Chairman, does it?
What's that?
The continuance doesn't have to be a very long continuance to the next, might be a month,
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
The May 9th, right?
Yep.
We have room on the May 9th.
You might be happier too with the final outcome of that. Of the stairs itself, it might be a better option for you all around. I don't know.
So can I just ask if we don't have the natural heritage letter before then?
You're
I- I-
screwed. No, I'm kidding. That's just,
I'm
trying
just-
to lighten up
I
tonight.
know, believe me, I understand. I'm just gonna say that I'll just send an email requesting a continuance rather than coming here,
Yes,
wasting your time,
Mhm.
wasting more money.
We've got that
Just-
tonight already.
I just wanna make sure we're all,
That's fine.
because sometimes I did file with them, I believe, on like the 30th or the 1st. So I was hoping to have it, and they
Yeah.
have 30 days, so they should have it by then, and they've been pretty good with us. But just in case it's a little longer.
Yep, just shoot us an email in the office. That's not a problem.
So I continue to May 9th.
Yep, at 6:51.
And then all of those conditions that we talked about, we will put in abeyance and table until such time as we have the next hearing.
I got them the notes.
There you go. You're my man. All
All
right.
right, so make a motion to continue for 126 Sugar Drive West to May 9th at 6:51 PM.
Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you all so much.
It was voted first. Nothing shows until it's done. Is there a second for that? Sorry, Sarah.
There, that's two.
Okay, no further deliberation on the request, we're good? You said something about conditions?
I said no, but Dan assured me that he's got them down for the next hearing, so we don't
Yeah,
have.
put them on the video. Okay,
Yeah.
roll call vote, Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
Now calling the 7 o'clock hearing for 3 Elliott Road, Alice Hoppus Junior Way LLC, proposed hardscape and landscape improvement representative is Cape and Highlands Engineering. This is a RDA. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Isani from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant and property owner Harris Pappas. And with us tonight is also Diane Tarbelli, representing the applicant. So this filing is for request for determination of applicability. The project as is shown on the screen is a couple of additions. These are non-habitable additions to the structure, single family dwelling. What we're proposing to do is a front porch, and then expand the rear deck. Part of this project also calls for relocation of the existing shed. The existing shed is slightly outside of the property, but this project was filed with Board of Appeals. And to comply with some of the requirements by the Board of Appeals, the shed is being relocated to meet setbacks to the property line. The entire property is in the flood zone. So the project is expanding, some footprint of non-habitable, structures in the flood zone. And there's approximately 150 square feet of lawn that is being eliminated with this addition. We understand that the property lacks natural vegetation and that this commission can request mitigation. And the applicant was willing to, in advance, offer at 2 times the expansion of development at mitigation. The septic system was recently installed based on a prior approval. It's a D9 septic system in the backyard. So what we're proposing to do is get permission to build the front porch, expand the rear deck, relocate the shed, and then restore or mitigate with both 615 square feet of natural vegetation along the western property line. The expansion of development is roughly 305 square feet over areas that are either lawn or landscape areas. And then there's an existing opening that was used for the construction of the septic system in the backyard. The shrubs that were removed from there, rhododendrons, will be placed back in that location, and it's not being counted towards any of the mitigation. That's just being replanted in the same location. So that's roughly the project. We did submit it to nitrogen calculation. There's a reduction just by the fact of reduction of lawns. There's an improvement in native vegetation or natural vegetation within the flood zone by 615 square feet. And then following this steps with conservation, the project will be closed with the Board of Appeals. The final has already been done with Board of Appeals. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Questions from commissioners? Other questions?
Seems pretty straightforward. What's that?
I keep looking up at the screen, but Aaron's gone. It's just us sitting.
Aaron's gone. She's on dog duty. Unfortunate choice, dog duty together.
Yeah, as I hear,
It's late.
Paul talking about it, I did fail to mention, we are proposing the drywall for roof runoff for the porch.
But that front porch, it's on Elliott, right?
Yes.
Because I couldn't, yeah.
It seems to me to be a lot of work for an RDA. You get 2 structures attached to the house with a dry well, relocating the shed, put it in mitigation. I mean, there's a little bit going on there. Typically, we don't condition RDAs.
Well, the shed is really just
Thinking out loud.
twist.
Originally
get
had
it
that
on a
thought
90.
too, but,
Yeah,
and then,
it's, I mean, I remember being on here for the,
Yeah.
for the septic. It's a tight lot. There's not a lot of room.
It is,
there.
well, all the lots there are.
If I could add, the only work in the ground is just sonotubes. There's no cross wall being constructed.
Right.
It's just sonotubes for both the deck floor and the porch. So there's no major excavation happening for this project. The relocation of the shed is just a relocation of the shed
It's just straightening it out.
and pulling it away to meet the FICO setbacks.
Mhm.
And there's major improvement in terms of native vegetation, which those of you who went to the site, the property is mostly lawn.
Right.
So with the 150 square foot of lawn that is removed with the proposed structures, plus the 615 square feet of removed lawn for the proposed mitigation, there's roughly some 700 plus square feet of reduction in lawn. and then the 600 square feet of native plantings. So, I believe the plan as presented with the mitigation is a vast improvement over existing conditions. The front porch and the back deck does not increase the use of the property. The house is still the same.
I think it's, the new deck that's on, I know it's going over the partial deck that's there.
So
Is
right,
it gonna sit on the ground or what's it?
no, it's those of you who went to the site, it's very shallow, but it
Yeah.
is raised from the ground.
Right,
So that one, of course, is gonna get completely removed,
okay.
and it's following the same elevation, it's just extending further out.
Sure. The new kid here, and not that I would assume that this would happen, but if, this is an RDA, not a notice of intent. If there were changes to this plan midstream or elements that were not completed, there would be a requirement to come back.
So if the RDA is approved, it goes attached to a specific plan,
Mhm.
and this is the plan that was submitted. So if the work is done and it's not done according to the plan, the conservation department staff has the means to issue enforcements because it will be a violation from a permit. An RDA is a permit. And it is tied to a specific plan, and the plan is written in that plan.
Any other questions? Okay, none, good. I'll go to the public for questions. No? Good. Anything from Drew?
Hey, you muted, Drew.
You muted.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
So yeah, the reason why this was brought in is, or recommended as an RDA is because of the project, additions to the home are set upon sonotubes. So we as staff felt that, in the event of a flood, that structures put upon sonotubes raised up, would not present a significant impediment to floodwaters. There's no removal of native vegetation on the lot. In fact, there's enhancement of native vegetation on the lot. So, in the absence of any demonstrated adverse impact to the resource area, which is, in this case, isolated land subject to coastal storm flow, that was the rationale behind having this presented as an RDA. And what Raul had said in answer to Sarah's question is 100% true. If any project is not done in accordance with the plan of record, it gives us the full right to go in and enforce that situation under our authority under the Wetlands Protection Act. No other comments.
Okay. Anything else? No, that's up to you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for a negative determination for 3 Elliott Road.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Who was the second? Cindy.
Sandy, it's right.
Okay. Any deliberations? You good? Take a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
All right,
Yes, sir.
Sarah? And I vote no. Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you. Now calling the 7:03 hearing for 119 Daniels Island Road and 15 Waterway, Roland Basin, Seabury Homes LLC. Proposed construction maintenance of a new single-family dwelling with pool patio at garage, IA septic system, and associated hardscaping landscaping. Representative is BSC Group, owner of record means Seabury Properties LLC. Notice of intent filed under DEP 433287. As mentioned earlier, we also had a request for this property as well as the one earlier to be continued to May 9th at 6:36 for the reasons stated. So I would accept the motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Motion made and seconded for the continuance. Any discussion, questions?
I'm good.
We're good. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that means we'll roll over to May 6:36. Now calling the 706 period for 26 Wheeler Road, a year. Proposed installation and maintenance of a seasonal dock, access stairs and access path represented as Cape Island Engineering and your record. Randy Mace. That very much. It's a notice of intent that you see file number 433286. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chuck Rowland, Cape Islands Engineering. I'm here before you tonight representing the owners of 26 Wheeler Road. I think my narrative pretty brief. We're proposing a new seasonal 4-foot wide fixed aluminum pier with an L-shaped end. It will be seasonally deployed. We're not asking for any waivers or requests, and we feel that it meets all your requirements, performance standards, both through the Mass Wetlands Protection Act as well as town bylaws. So, in my opinion, it's a fairly straightforward project, but with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thanks, Chuck.
Is there a dock there now?
No,
This is a brand new
yes, ma'am.
entry dock.
If I may.
Yes.
So this, just to refresh everyone, this was the property that was brought up, 26 Wheeler Road. They had some trees removed because they were infested. And the lower bottom, from the 75-foot buffer to about where the natural vegetation begins, it's all torn up basically. So that last RDA was given their determination, and then the property was sold. And this is what the new homeowners did. A couple months back, Cape Island sent me a plan with the house, and the homeowner agreed to keep the house under the 150 and told us that we should expect a dock permit. So just keep in mind that all of that was disturbed before this went in, or before this was applied for. So, just to be clear.
And is approved under
Yes.
your, actually, I have a copy of the determination.
So the disturbed areas, that's what we're talking about. It's gonna be replanted.
That's gonna be replanted. They were gonna put a berm in with some vegetation on it.
Yeah.
They already have that plan for the RDA.
Yeah.
It has not been completed yet. I would imagine because the limit of work is running right where the berm has to go for the house.
Yeah.
So we told them it's all limited work. So I would imagine that will be done after the limited work is removed. So, but that still is active RDA.
Yeah, the photos, I don't remember being out there before, but I don't know. I've been up there. Recently. Yeah.
Good memory.
Yep. So
Well, June of 21.
the limit of work you can see ends right, we told them right where that last pile was. These two piles were here during the last RDA. Those were already in place, so those were not done in construction. So that is the limit of work, and then all this area was where the trees were removed and the ground was completely disturbed, as you can see.
Yeah.
And the RDA was filed for that, the last one. And this notice of intent is just to get a dock and a pier system on site. Very long lots, extremely long.
Yeah. So is the dock going between those two pitch pines out
So
there?
right here is where the dock will go. There's actually a flag like right there.
Yeah.
Can't really see it, but right here is where it'll go. I just got this so you can see the thickness of vegetation from a different angle.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just be some 38 square feet of impacts of vegetation.
That's all. That's the impact. Yeah.
What happens to that sad tree?
Just grows like that.
It's so sad.
No, there's no. That's how it is in nature. No straight line.
No, I know,
numbers.
but he looks like he's listing.
Probably is. Chasing after a little sunlight.
What was that?
Chasing after sunlight.
Oh. They
Yeah,
tend to do that, don't they?
Yeah, and this wasn't the house, with the large maple tree on the corner.
There was no house there.
There was no house.
That was one
No
next
house.
door.
This house you can see is just being
Next door,
constructed.
yeah.
Thought the area looked familiar.
Yeah, the house is being constructed right now. While I was on site, they were framing it.
I can see it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very close. From the house to the right, it's extremely close. But everything for lot lines and all of that for setbacks all achieved from, it's from zoning perspective. So
And what's the size of the float?
No flow.
There's no float.
no, that's good.
The end looks like a float. That's not a float.
No.
No, it's just.
It's an L shape.
And have you received the determination from Natural Heritage yet?
No, it's been applied for.
So wait a minute.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, then. I'm happy.
Well, we just had a project where we asked for a continuance because we had an error in Natural Heritage. Because I know they're two completely different issues. I'm just being consistent here.
That one, Drew, is, I didn't even think about it, but he's absolutely right. That was the concern with the core law
Right,
with that because of the 10-year restriction for the piping culvert.
right.
So that is a question that is definitely up in the air, for that project. With this project, since there is none, I know the last Natural Heritage concern that was seen was from Raul, I believe, over on John's Pond, and they had to change the footing.
Right.
6 Ned Bessie, I want to say it was, they had to change the footing.
Right.
On there, so that could be a condition that Natural Heritage might force here as well. I'm just not sure when it comes to the freshwater bodies of the road now.
And this is seasonal, so this starts coming.
Yep, yeah, I think almost everyone on the shoot is seasonal, I believe,
Where's it gonna go
so.
Say it again.
for storage?
You're asking why it's seasonally deployed?
No, where is it gonna be stored?
Oh, I think that we specified specifically in an upland area, so it's not in your buffer zone.
And they should have, they will have room, especially after plantings, because of how much disturbance there is, they'll be able to. Just make sure that it's not on the 4-foot wide path when it's coming down, just because, not on it, but make sure it's not enlarging the 4-foot wide path over the years from being stored there, that's all we ask.
That's fair.
Is it possible that Natural Heritage would, work on this survey?
They do it themselves, so they have it pretty much, they take care of all that themselves. So when it comes to that, the mussels in this pond are sand-based and soil-based. So you can see there's some sand that might come up. One of their conditions, I can't say it will be, could just be, make sure it's off of the sandy substrate, so it's not resting in the sand. And I can attest to that from a location on John's Pond where someone left it on the sand this past winter. And it actually eroded away the beach of the neighbor completely almost. So they had to go and move it and just refix the area. The sand was not all lost, it was just piled up on their property. So it could be negative like that to people, but imagine that condition to a shellfish. So that could be a condition that they do, but I can't comment on that to the report them.
No, but we can make that a condition of approval tonight.
Um,
That if there's, in other words, that if there is, that there, any conditions, Drew has put here from Natural Heritage regarding impacts to the rear.
Mhm.
That can be put in tonight,
yeah, keep it up.
if it passes,
Keep this, the wind off-season storage off the sandy substrate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah, that's fine.
that would be close.
Yeah.
Or if,
Yeah, we did.
Doesn't Natural Heritage typically request that the footprint of the seasonal dock remain consistent, so we're not punching different?
What they, so yeah, I've seen them go both ways. The most recent one was 6 Ned Bessie, where they were rolling it in and out. And Natural Heritage said, no, put a fixed position under the water and that's where it's gonna be forever. In other words, we don't want the sand getting moved by wheels. We don't want pedal feet going in every single season, moving the sand and making disturbance.
Yep.
So that was their condition for that one. They could do that here. I just don't know if they're gonna, because I know this pond, it's a little different than John's Pond.
Yeah.
Just the way it is, and I just don't know because a lot of the docks in this pond have wheels itself.
Do.
Oh, big wheels.
Yeah.
So, and the pond is previously developed from who knows when. where some of the locations actually have a concrete pad about 10, 20 feet away from the water, just to roll it up on from the sixties, from the fifties.
Yeah.
You know, so I couldn't say what natural heritage should be done.
It really depends on the mussel survey result Natural Heritage, They previously surveyed all these ponds with freshwater mussels, so if the location doesn't show a viable freshwater mussel habitat, then they won't require that stationary location for a dock. So that's why we're waiting to hear from Natural Heritage, and we can just incorporate those conditions. It is different from the coastal project for obvious reasons, and that's why I think this could be approved in lieu of receipt of Natural Heritage, and then those conditions, whatever they happen to be incorporated. Whereas the other project, I think it just warranted a continuance because of that setting.
Anything else? Questions from the public? Doesn't sound that way.
Make the motion for a closing issue for 26 Wheeler Road with the condition that any conditions from natural heritage be incorporated into the order conditions.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sarah? And I vote yes as well.
Thank you very much.
And
Okay, good luck.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next time.
okay.
All right, so. This is good news. Just one more here.
We're the only ones out there.
Are you the only one? Don't feel less than just because the other one's out there.
There was one who just, I think she did a cleaning service, and she just said, when you're all done, if you could just shut those lights on. And she literally asked us to.
Did she literally say that?
Yeah, he literally said it to me every time, so I'm happy you got it this time.
Oh, she was very nice.
Ah. Okay, so this is Greenwood?
Now calling the 709 hearing for 48 Greenwood Road, Daniel and Joyce Marker, proposed raise, replace and maintain of single-family dwelling, new IA septic system with hardscaping and landscaping improvements. Representative is Mark Matthews Environmental. Owner of record is A. Marsters, trustee, Greenwood Trust. They notice of intent. DEP file number 4332888.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm Mike Ball from Marsh Matters Environmental. I'm representing Joyce and Dan Marsters, who are the applicants and property owners, and here with Mark Hibb from Cape and Islands Engineering. You may recognize this address as we were before you back in the fall. We filed an notice of intent in September, proposing fill on the property with a proposal for a future raise and rebuild of the structure in a future septic system. Commission really wasn't comfortable proving, well, two things: the amount of fill that was being proposed, and also the lack of detail in terms of what they were proposing. So at that time, we just really weren't prepared to have drawings prepared and do all the design work. So we're now coming back to you after drawing that NOI with a much more detailed plan for a raise and replace a single family home. So I'll just kind of bullet point this for you. Single family house would be demolished and replaced on a new flood zone compliant foundation. This is a property that's 8,000 square feet. That's entirely within the coastal flood zone. It's at the corner of Bierce and Greenwood Road. The house itself was built in 1950. The existing septic system that's there on the site is a 3-bedroom sized system that's been there since about 1984, according to Board of Health. So IA system is going in, and this is a denitrificating system. You'll notice on the plan that fill is proposed. And really that fill is much less than what had originally been proposed back last year. And really the fill is to accommodate the increase in the foundation. It's about 3.4 feet. And to accommodate the components of the IA system. Gravel driveway, I'll point out, is being proposed to replace paved driveway. The plan in front of you actually shows it as a gravel existing driveway, but in fact, as a paved parking surface that's going to be replaced with pervious material. I think I'll have Mark just describe the IA system for you about that. Again, Mark Dibb, Cape and Islands Engineering. So this particular project, we are upgrading the leach field. Recent test bits were performed per typical Board of Health requirements. Cape Cod adjustment was added. So groundwater elevation ended up being 3.5. We're using on the leach field, we're using as low profile as possible. You'll see these structures are only about 3 inches high. So they allow for good the treated effluent out of the nitrogen reducing system to distribute evenly over a very shallow vertical footprint and that's to minimize grading. So in the front of the house, we're not really even grading at all. You'll see there's an existing 10 contour and the 11 comes right to the house. The one area, the northeast corner where we plan to relocate the shed a little bit, you'll see there is a retaining wall. It's about 20 feet along the northerly property, about 30 feet going south. It's only to support the elevation needed for the leach field. We've stopped it as quickly as we can in either direction. And then as you go around the house, we're bringing that contour. You'll see the 10 and 8 right down to existing grade around the northeast corner. And then pretty much coming back up the rest of the site. So again, there's really, you'll see the 8 contour matches almost exactly into the 8, the 10 ties into the 10. So there's really minimal between 0 and 2 feet of landscape fill around the house. Again, roof drains provided. Actually, time to reflect on my roof drain design out in the hall. I believe the drain over here at about elevation 6. If we were to potentially discuss closing and issuing, I would condition that we can basically, these are the way the septic system designed. That's a leach chamber. We can just use a low profile leach chamber and achieve at least a minimum 2-foot groundwater separation. So I would propose that as a condition to change this particular dry well to a low profile drainage structure. If Mike has anything else, I think that's our presentation. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
First question I have for you guys is, I believe with the new house to the north, that there's gonna be retaining walls there. And I think those are right on the property line.
They were right on or you went to the.
And so then let's put a scale on the plan. So it looks like from the north side of the retaining wall by the shed to the property line is gonna be 5 feet. So I know it's only gonna be 30 inches high there. Right? So,
Yep.
So to me, that looks like it's gonna be a sluice way. If we do have a flood event coming down that way.
We would love to coordinate and do something that would make sense with relation to the neighboring wall. But do we really legally have any permission to, like, it'd be great to just bring this wall, tie it into that wall. And, you know, at a relatively minimal amount of fill, just, what Steve is saying is, it's, you know, from our house, we're gonna come across to a wall, back up to a wall, you know, there's gonna be
Yeah.
a 5-foot channel there. We'd love to coordinate that and make something just.
You're saying that these chambers are gonna, you need the wall for the grade level for the.
Yeah, the vertical separation to ground.
So
Um,
I'm just thinking, geez, if you had a flood event, also
Right.
now you have water rushing
So-
between two walls, I'm thinking, okay, what about this person here to the east, or the two people to the east?
Mm.
You know, how are they gonna be impacted and things like that, so, all right, can you move the shed to over where you have about 70,000 square feet on that side? Cause that's pretty level over there, and pull the wall back or do something differently with it. I'm just thinking there's gonna be a problem in the future at some point, you know?
I mean, we can. I'd love to just have this wall come to here and just that's what we're calling a sluice way, you know, be relatively minor amount of additional fill just to just make everybody equal. But again, we were essentially just trying to minimize fill, you know, we'd love to not have a wall at all. You know, we just need to meet Title V requirements for the new field, so the shed.
Well,
it
if
just
you
wasn't
move the
like
shed, then you can pull the wall back, right?
Slightly. We need to hold 5 feet from the edge of the leach field to the wall, and, you know, the end of the leach field is just slightly into the shed, which is allowed, the shed can just move around. So it could maybe slide back about 3 feet. I mean, that. So,
Remember from the last hearing, didn't the neighbor come and was in favor of going together on the wall between properties?
So yeah, if you wanted to address that, yeah. So basically, we were in discussion because he's running a 3-foot wall on the backside of my property.
Yeah.
And he was saying that if we could, the reason I came before you with that idea was something that we came up with together. We thought it makes sense that if I could just bring up my yard, we could eliminate that wall altogether. And I could just run my yard with his wall, because he's at 3 feet and then tapers along down to the front. So I think in reference to Commissioner Cook's comment, if we could just fill that whole area to his wall and then gradually slope it down back to natural grade. And that was our intent, and that's why we were trying to do it. Instead of creating, because now his was the low spot and we went down into his, and he had the 3-foot wall, and we thought that was going to be creating an issue on our property. So we thought that if we could lift up our property to be level with his, eliminate a wall, because we thought that would be a good thing. And that would be more of a natural feel or flow is an appropriate term, but that's what we thought it would be. Yeah. So I don't know if that would work or something like that, if we could just bring our yard down to meet his there, or at least meet his wall, or we could just eliminate the wall on his part, and then gradually slope the back along with his.
So he had no objection?
Oh, no,
As in about-
actually, he was all for it.
He was all for it?
He came to me and said, hey, listen. He was
What?
here. He was
What?
here. Yeah, he came.
Then why wouldn't you just do it?
Well, because I came for permission to do it, to just bring the yard up. That's what I was coming for. Because I knew eventually I was gonna raise and replace. And then judging from feedback that, you know, what you guys gave to us, we said, okay, let's actually do the project. Because we're gonna do it soon anyways. So we designed the house, got rid of all the fill as much as possible, and designed this based on the feedback from the board.
But you might be limited to the amount of fill that you could bring in because of the planning board article on town meeting, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Is there a restriction there?
That's a component of this, is that, yeah, the grading you do see is that 2 feet and 10 feet landscape fill, so.
That meets their requirement.
Yes.
It does or it doesn't?
We feel this plan meets that zoning.
I see.
Amendment 5, yes.
But if you took the wall out and put more fill in, it wouldn't.
That I don't know, it would be. Oh, I'll speak to that, but from a layman's point of view, it would not be that much.
You're so afraid that if you say that.
I usually do, so.
I mean.
No, I'm commiserating with you.
If we.
Especially told me.
If
To a minimum.
if you see there's, from the front door, there's an 11 contour that wraps around. If that just came straight and tied into the neighbor's wall, I mean, then that fill is related to the septic system, which is an exception to that bylaw.
Right.
And then at least this linear length that's parallel to the other wall will be removed. If, so the reason why you didn't act on the other one, because it was kind of a two-phase approach, but phase 2 was not there.
Wasn't there, right.
So now that the detail is there,
Yeah.
I think it seems like as long as we meet all the other requirements, you would be amenable to seeing us coordinate at least a portion
Yeah.
of this with.
As long as it didn't violate on the other side.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because if I could add one other thing, because contributing to the issue is the 2 homes on the other side, they've raised up their properties too. So all the properties around me have all raised up to a certain level.
Right.
I'm the only property that still is below that level. So that's why we're trying to bring it up to get everything.
Well, it does make sense.
Yeah.
You move those chambers south a bit.
I'm looking upside down that way. Yes.
So say if you move that south,
It would be moved in line with the other, we need a 10-foot setback on that end. Yes. it could
yeah,
stand that.
that's what I'm saying, then, okay, then you can pull everything south.
I think it sounds like if we could at least remove this section of wall,
When you
one
say
way or
this,
another.
I can't see a thing where,
Yeah, that's horizontal section of the wall.
yeah, that'd be better.
This little piece of wall.
Yeah, okay,
Because then it gets rid of that
Mm.
2-wall situation.
Yeah, saying if you can move the chamber south and then move the shed over the other side. then you can-
right.
you can get rid of that wall and just taper the grade down around that. Just a thought.
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it does.
Then you get rid of the. Sluice
Yep.
effect.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Steve, can you put that in as just a condition?
No.
Or have them come back?
Continuance, right, to come back. Revise the plan.
All right, if you are gonna do that, just, I just wanna make sure we're also, are you gonna change the drywall low profile design?
Yep.
You will, okay. So we have everything.
All right, so that would
I'll just make sure we have proper separations. So if we're coming back, we'll address them both.
Right.
So,
do you agree that maybe go for continuance? Correct them,
That's fine. Like,
Right. your thing, your condition?
Yeah, that was the one
Okay.
you brought up, yeah. Drew, do you have any comments?
I do. Are there any other conditions that the applicant needs to be made aware of for any applicable regulations?
I thought we were gonna get through this without bringing up 20.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they need to know. They need to know.
By the time we meet again, there might be clarification from legal counsel, who knows?
Which would be great. Yeah.
Moving target.
It is.
And can I just clarify one thing, so I want to just stupid question, but same position as regulation 25 as the other ones? Are you in the same position for this case?
Today,
I just want to, understood, I just want to make sure so we're
yes,
all.
we have not submitted a waiver
That's all.
as of midnight.
I just wanted on the table. That's all, that's on the table. Everything's fluid.
Everything on the table, it's 1088 square feet for existing and 1839
Broke my own rule.
Still here.
I'm
Yeah,
still-
so I mean, that's.
I will.
Again,
Have
we
your form,
use the
though,
different
right?
colors, so it's the tan color
Yes.
is 1088,
That'd
and the dark brown color over here is 1839.
Yeah, I am.
Or the middle of that.
No, I would.
We are, removing an impervious, patio and pergola. You know, I think one other thing we can do is provide a, overall site impervious calculation. I believe it's, I didn't have it handy tonight. It's not something we typically have to do, but I believe it's by providing impervious patio and gravel, it's gonna be very
This is,
close.
yeah, this is
Not
continuous.
Increasing impervious
And
area
then
or,
boom, boom,
you know, minimum, increase.
Put that together. Paul, it's just the total, the structural lot coverage is went from 13.6 to 22.9, but that's still within Papaneset overlay zones. 25%. That's right.
Is that what it is?
That's for zoning.
Yes. It's another one.
That's
It's
another
not maxed out, which a lot of them end up coming through maxed out.
Yeah.
You know, okay. Anything else?
No, I think we're ready to climb this mountain. That's right.
I would accept the motion then, so.
So you know
Yeah,
exactly.
we would like to
Continuing.
request a continuance to the 9th if it's still available.
6:54.
Must
So
almost-
moved.
6:54, you said?
Correct, yes.
Right back.
Zero.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any other last minute concerns?
No,
Problems, nothing?
I think that was a nice resolution. It's just my editorial thing.
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Darren? I vote yes as well. See you.
Thank you all very much.
See you on the night. Okay. Good luck. Thank you.
Made it.
Ah, right? You know what, I can say,
This one.
no, but wait, I can say now that your hearing is closed, you didn't screw it up.
I get time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the question before I proceed any further. On this agenda, we have 279 Monmouth Way Road Realty Trust for 712. Oh, I see it. I didn't see the request for the.
This is a continuance.
When
right?
did that
Hold
happen?
on, if I may, folks, I have a very important announcement to make in regards to this hearing before you even open it. So this was placed on the agenda as a placeholder, as a precaution, because as many of you may be aware, the last hearing effectively never took place because we did not have a quorum. I've been requested by the attorney that the commission take no action on this hearing. Don't open it up. Don't continue it. Don't do anything because his client has not instructed the lawyer to proceed with this in any way, shape, or form as of yet. So you can't open the hearing. You can't continue the hearing. It's just there as a placeholder. I've told this to Attorney Wall. He understands why it's on the agenda, but his client has requested the commission take no action on this hearing.
Well, I'm glad I asked before I opened it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just wondering.
Is there the application sheet though that we need to?
As the chairman, you're the last one to know everything.
Really? I'll get an email out to you. To everyone,
Okay.
so.
Literally made known to me at the end of the day today.
It didn't do it.
He said it-
Literally at the end of the day.
Oh, it was
Oh,
literally
yeah,
like
the day.
4 o'clock or something.
Oh,
It was very good.
Okay.
because I know I sent you my Nolan form. I think that was mid-afternoon. I didn't
Yes.
hear anything. I just assumed we were.
No,
Good to go.
that was, we got it very late in the day for that one. And Drew talked to him, so that was the deal.
Text would have been good though. I see them. Okay, we do have a 7:15 for an extension on an order of conditions for Zero Uncle Tracy's Road, Pompanesett People Association, request to extend the order of conditions 033121 for 3 years, representative of Solid to Lake Management. So,
No,
do we have anything
not you.
on
You've
that?
been so quiet, like waiting.
I'm just learning.
It's on
I'm
the-
just learning.
it's on the agenda, I don't know,
I kept thinking, you gotta.
Any
tell me
reason
what-
why?
there's no paperwork or anything.
Pompanesett Association.
You're going to touch on this one.
So they're requesting an extension for continued treatment of invasive species on Dean's Pond. It's an ongoing treatment project, so they're requesting an additional 3 years to continue to treat invasive species in Dean's Pond, aquatic species.
Okay, have they started any of that treatment at all, Drew, or is this
Yeah,
still?
it's ongoing for the last several years.
Okay,
Make a motion to, for the extension for 3 years for Zero Uncle Tracy's Road.
okay,
Second,
let's get that. Steve is going.
Drew, didn't we do this once before, or is it a different property? In the same area?
Different property, same area.
No, for the 3-year extension?
I'm not sure, Marjorie.
Oh, never mind.
So there's a motion made and seconded for
No,
the.
before I started this.
Yeah, no, but a different, but it was,
Cindy, go to work.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
We have a motion made and seconded by you
Yeah,
to grant a 3-year extension.
Yeah.
for DEP 433121.
thank you. I apologize for my extending the extension.
No further deliberation on that. I want to wrap this thing up.
Yeah,
Yes.
Steve, Sandy.
Yes.
Marjorie.
yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Good, that's done. The.
Oh, thank you.
The 2 CLCs, there's no issues on those. Let's go
It's
past
what I-
those. You're good with that. No, those are the. ones
Oh,
to
these
sign.
were, okay.
All right, let me back up to pre and post hearing agenda items. We have a couple of sets of minutes that need approval. The first one is March 21st, 24. And voting on those would be myself, Steve Cook, Sandy Godfrey, and Marguerite Clapper.
Okay.
Did you have a chance to look at those? Yes, Sandy.
I got, couple of things. I noticed that we're referring to, and this is just maybe me. Raul is mentioned just Raul and all of the.
I never hear his last name.
Yeah,
Oh,
I never hear.
I'll
it.
spell it out.
Okay.
I
Yes, I know.
can
I
pronounce it.
never get his last name. He's the only person that never gives me a
Yeah.
full name.
that happens in the other.
And then you feel bad at.
Yeah, and I'm like, and he's here a lot. Never once.
And also, the paragraph that starts with Ms. McManus talking about the tolling, you have towing, I think it's tolling. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? The first hearing on March 21st for, we don't have it in front of me, Debbie Lane, Debbie Drive. Yeah, I voted no on that, and the minutes
Yeah.
reflect that I voted yes, so that needs to be changed. And,
You were good to catch that.
I read everything.
Yeah, well, that was
I
good. though.
thought it when I read it, but it wasn't. sure.
I never go back to check my notes.
I was
to see if
sure,
it
and then I
was
went
true
back to
that
the
I
video
voted.
to be doubly sure.
You
Oh,
did.
yes, I did.
Yeah,
Did I vote yes on that? There's no possible way.
Oh, my gosh, good for you. Now I'm nervous. I know.
You'd be surprised what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything else for assignment. So with those edits, we're good? That's it. Okay.
I was like.
Motion to accept the 3/21/24 minutes with edits noted.
Edits noted, okay? thank
Edits
you.
noted.
Is there a second? Thank you, Sandy. So I'll take the roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Roger?
Yeah.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. The April 4th, Alyssa, you said you wanted to hold on those or something? Did you say?
Not hold, I caught myself, I did the wrong, location for the meeting, so I'm gonna change that to Woquacket. I don't know if you guys noticed anything else, but that's what I found. That's fine, go right ahead. I'll get it, don't worry. No, no.
You don't have.
Alex is in here.
Aaron's
And
back.
Aaron's gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. And I can't vote, I wasn't here. A question, maybe somebody can answer this. If you watch the entire video, as I did, I filled out my form. Am I eligible to vote on those minutes or no?
On the minutes, I don't know, that you have to.
I thought I heard on March,
Oh,
I
wow.
thought I had a similar conversation on March 21st regarding that, because you weren't present, right? Well, somebody.
Yes, but I was-
To watch it.
Do I owe you?
No, I was just saying, because you left like 5 minutes.
I left-
You lost
I-
service, yeah.
I left right at the very, very end.
So, hey, Drew,
That.
if they caught up with the meeting and signed the affidavit, are they allowed to vote for the minutes as well, or is it just voting for the hearings?
I would assume it's fine to vote for the minutes.
Okay.
Or would you find that? I didn't make it, so. Just curious, but no, sorry.
No, it's good to know this whole Mullen rule is new to us.
Well, yeah. and we-
Why do you call it the Mullen Rule? Because it named
Mr.
after
Mullen?
Bill Mullen?
I was surprised
Not
when
the
I
Mullen.
first came on the commission that we didn't have it, because Lemonster was using it for years.
The Mullen Rule,
Yeah, you
but
know
it's,
what?
but it's named after, Rep Mullen though, right? Representative
I
Mullen,
believe it is, yeah.
yeah,
Each town has a.
Okay, hold on, I think
every time.
It's optional.
It's optional.
Yeah, we signed up.
that's all I had other than updates, unless you have something pressing. You're good? Nope. Drew, do you got something on the updates that you would like to fill us in on, or?
Nope,
I know you got a long commute back tonight.
I'm already back.
I know that. I was just being a little sarcastic. Okay, then I'd accept the motion for adjournment. So moved.
Wait,
Thank you, Steve, thank you, Sandy.
Third.
Taking a roll call vote, Steve,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Marjorie,
yes,
Sarah,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. We stand adjourned at
we stand adjourned.
10:28.
All right.